Welcome to another story of Cheating Tales Lab. We're grateful for every single one of you who's joined us today. We've got an interesting story that we hope will keep you hooked. Let's start. The Chicago Fire Department's Tactical Rescue Unit had just completed a grueling 24-hour shift. Roderick Conway's muscles ached from rappelling down a 12-story building to save a maintenance worker trapped on a malfunctioning window washing platform. But the satisfaction of a successful rescue made the exhaustion worthwhile. Hell of a save today, Conway. Captain Reynolds clapped his shoulder. Take tomorrow off. You've earned it. Rod hadn't planned to be home on a Tuesday afternoon. His wife Candace had her usual intense training session scheduled, something she never shut up about lately. The house felt unusually quiet as he dropped his gear bag by the door. A notification chimed from the kitchen counter. Candace's iPad lit up, displaying a message preview that stopped Rod's breath cold. My husband's too small to satisfy me. Can't wait for our private session. The sender's name glowed accusingly. Zach Grimes, her personal trainer. Rod stood motionless, years of crisis response training keeping his hands steady as he picked up the tablet. They shared an Apple ID, Candace's idea 6 months ago, claiming it would help them stay connected during his long shifts. The irony twisted in his gut like a knife. More messages popped up in rapid succession. You're so tight from our last workout. Need another deep tissue massage? That new pose you showed me in the private training room. Can't stop thinking about it. Your husband's probably sleeping while we're getting hot and sweaty. Rod's jaw clenched. All those nights Candace had mocked his old man bedtime, knowing full well his rescue shifts left him exhausted. He defended her to his team when she missed award ceremonies and department functions, claiming she was dedicated to her fitness goals. His phone buzzed, his brother Marshall's name lighting up the screen. Rod, got a minute? It's about Mom's medical bills. Rod moved to his home office, closing the door quietly. What's wrong? The specialist wants to try a new treatment protocol. Insurance is fighting it. Marshall's voice carried the weight of concern. Have you talked to Candace about helping? I know you mentioned she'd promised. She's been busy with competition prep. The words tasted bitter now. Rod had been covering their mother's mounting expenses alone, despite Candace's repeated promises to contribute from her fitness business income. That's got to be going well at least, Marshall said carefully. Mom mentioned seeing her post with that trainer. Zach something? Grimes. Rod's voice remained neutral through years of practice handling crisis situations. I should check our accounts, see what we can do for Mom. After hanging up, Rod logged into their joint banking portal. The truth hit harder than any backdraft he'd ever faced. Their savings account, decimated. His inheritance from Dad, specifically set aside for Mom's treatment, had been systematically drained through transfers to Personal Training Solutions LLC, Zach's private company. Thousands of dollars, gone without discussion or consent. Rod downloaded the statements, noting the pattern. The transfers increased as Candace spent more time at the gym, coinciding with her sudden interest in fitness competition. His phone buzzed again. Willard James, his closest friend on the rescue team. Can you swing by the station? Need your eyes on something. 20 minutes later, Rod sat in Will's truck in the station parking lot, watching his friend struggle to find words. Look, brother, there's no easy way. We'll grip the steering wheel. Bridget's been keeping something from me, about Candace. Rod waited, letting years of tactical patience guide his response. They work out at the same time slot, Will continued. Her and Zach. Bridget says. They're not exactly subtle. Tell me, the girls' nights twice a week? They're cover for meetings at his private studio. Will couldn't meet his eyes. Everyone at the station knows. We didn't know how to tell you. Rod absorbed this, remembering all the times Candace had rushed out dressed to kill, claiming female bonding time with Bridget and the other firefighters' wives. How long? At least 6 months. Since she started serious training for competition. Will finally looked at him. What are you going to do? Rod's expression remained composed, but his eyes held the same focus his team recognized from their most dangerous rescues. First, I'm going to make a call. Jillian Martinez answered on the second ring. Rod had pulled her from a high-rise fire 2 years ago, rappelling down 60 stories with her clinging to his back after her office's stairwell collapsed. Roderick Conway, Her voice warmed with recognition. To what do I owe the pleasure? Need your professional services, Jill? The discreet kind. As a private investigator specializing in infidelity cases, Jillian worked quickly. Within days, she'd uncovered Zach's pattern, seducing wealthy clients' wives, recording encounters for potential blackmail. 3 divorces in the past 2 years had ended with quiet settlements after the husbands received anonymous video clips. He's smart, Jillian reported, showing Rod surveillance photos. Private training room has hidden cameras. Gets them hooked on steroids, creates dependency. When they're in deep, he suggests recording their progress for motivation. Any of the videos surface publicly? Never. He keeps them as insurance, threatens to send them to family members or employers if the women don't pay up after their husbands find out. Rod studied the photos, Zach leading Candace into his private studio, his hand inappropriately low on her back. Timestamps showed late-night sessions when Rod was supposed to be on shift. He's never faced someone like you, though, Jillian added. Most of his targets' husbands are executives, desk jockeys, not tactical rescue specialists who rappel down burning buildings for a living. Rod's smile didn't reach his eyes. What's his usual rate for these private sessions? $500 an hour, off the books. Why? Because we're going to make him an offer he can't refuse. The next day, an anonymous email reached Zach's private account, double his rate for comprehensive documentation of sessions with Candace Conway. Every video, every text, every encounter. Zach's response came within minutes. When do we start? Rod closed his laptop, his tactical mind already mapping out the next phases. Like any rescue operation, timing and precision would be everything. In their bedroom, Candace's competition bikinis hung like trophies, price tags still attached. On her nightstand, a framed photo from their wedding day showed a different woman, softer, genuine, looking at Rod with real love. He placed the frame face down. His phone chimed with a text from Marshall. Mom's insurance denied the treatment. Need to talk options. Rod typed back. I'll handle it. You focus on the investigation. Another message popped up, Jillian confirming Zach had taken the bait. Everything was falling into place. Like the fires he fought, Rod knew this situation would get hotter before it was contained. But he'd never backed down from a blaze, and he wasn't about to start now. The next morning, he left for his shift as usual. Candace barely looked up from her protein shake and Instagram posts. Don't wait up, she called out. Got a late training session. Wouldn't dream of it, Rod replied, his voice neutral. Let her think he was still the trusting husband, too exhausted from saving lives to notice her betrayal. Soon enough, she'd learn what his rescue team already knew. Roderick Conway never left anyone behind in a fire, but he also never forgot who started the blaze. The emergency alert pierced through Chicago's summer heat at 3 a.m. A massive forest fire threatened the western county line, already consuming thousands of acres. Rod Conway's tactical rescue team deployed immediately, their heavy gear offering little protection against the inferno's intensity. Team 1, take the North Quadrant, Rod commanded through his radio. Priority is the residential evacuation. Team 2, establish the fire break at Marker 7. Smoke turned the dawn sky apocalyptic orange. Rod coordinated with multiple agencies, directing helicopters and ground teams while personally leading the most dangerous rescues. A family trapped in a remote cabin. An elderly couple refusing to leave their home of 50 years. Each successful evacuation strengthened his team's resolve. His phone buzzed, Candace's familiar ringtone. Rod ignored it, focusing on the crisis map spread across his mobile command center. Sir, a young firefighter approached. Your wife keeps calling the station. Says it's urgent. Rod checked his messages. Where are you? My post-routine assessment is today. You promised to film my progress. This fire better be worth missing my competition prep. The last message made his jaw clench. He typed back, evacuating families. Try to contain your disappointment. Hours later, covered in soot and sweat, Rod received another call, this one from his mother's doctor. Mr. Conway, we need to discuss treatment options. The standard protocol isn't working, but there's an experimental program showing promising results. What's the cost? Insurance won't cover it. We're looking at roughly $60,000. Rod thought of the inheritance money Candace had drained for her training. I'll figure it out, Doc. Just save the spot. When he finally returned home 30 hours later, Candace was preening in front of their bedroom mirror, admiring her competition spray tan. You missed everything, she snapped. Zach says my poses lack confidence because my husband can't bother supporting me. Supporting you? Rod's voice carried the smoke of 100 burning acres. Like you're supporting Mom's treatment? Oh God, not this again. Candace rolled her eyes. Your mother's illness is just an excuse to hold me back. You're jealous because I'm finally doing something for myself. Doing someone, you mean? Her face flickered with momentary panic before settling into practiced indignation. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Rod headed for the shower. Enjoy your night at the gym. She didn't come home that night. Rod sat in his home office, laptop open to an email from Zach. The subject line read, Training Documentation, Session 1. The video played in stark high definition. Candace and Zach in the private training room, her wedding ring glinting under fluorescent lights as she wrapped herself around her trainer. Their conversation burned worse than any fire. Your husband's probably out playing hero again. Zach's voice dripped contempt. Please, Candace laughed. He can barely satisfy me in bed. You're twice the man he is. Rod closed the laptop, his tactical mind already processing this new intelligence. The next morning brought fresh ammunition. You won't believe this, Candace announced over breakfast, practically vibrating with excitement. I qualified for my first competition. We're having my birthday party here next weekend. A little victory celebration. Your birthday's not for 3 weeks. So? The timing's perfect. I've invited everyone from the gym. She scrolled through her phone. Bridget's handling the guest list. You don't mind funding it, right? Since you missed all my prep sessions. Rod studied his wife's enhanced features, noting the subtle signs of steroid use Jillian had warned him about. Whatever makes you happy, honey. The week that followed tested every ounce of Rod's tactical patience. His team received a commendation for their handling of the forest fire. A ceremony Candace skipped, claiming she needed to finalize party details. That night, another email from Zach arrived. More footage, more explicit than the last. But it was the attached text messages that sealed their fate. Candace, after I win the competition, I'm leaving him. Zach, about time, baby. What about the house? Candace, prenup only kicks in after 5 years. 2 more months and half of everything is mine. Rod forwarded everything to his lawyer, then called Marshall. Need a favor, brother. Background check on everyone attending this party. The results painted an interesting picture. Most of the guest list consisted of Zach's previous clients, wives who'd fallen for his routine. Bridget, Lorraine, others who smirked behind their husbands' backs while enabling Candace's affair. But the most disturbing revelation came from Marshall himself. During their usual Sunday family dinner, he pulled Rod aside. There's something you need to see. Marshall handed over his phone. She tried this last month. I shut it down, but the messages made Rod's blood boil. Your brother doesn't have to know. What happens in the family stays in the family. Winky face. You're the better Conway anyway. She said I wouldn't mind keeping it in the family. Marshall's disgust was palpable. I wanted to tell you sooner, but she threatened to tell Karen about that case we worked undercover. Rod placed a hand on his brother's shoulder. You're telling me now. That's what matters. At the gym, Candace and Zach had grown bolder. They barely tried hiding their relationship, confident in Rod's perceived weakness. During her training sessions, they openly discussed their future plans, thinking no one would dare tell the pathetic husband. But Rod wasn't idle. Each day brought new evidence, meticulously organized and documented. His mother's successful response to the experimental treatment, which he'd funded by selling his prized motorcycle, gave him the final push needed for what came next. The day before the party, Rod visited the station. Need some AV help tomorrow, he told his team. Consider it a training exercise in exposure and containment. Will studied his friend's expression. You sure about this? Some fires need to burn, Rod replied. Just be ready with the metaphorical hoses. He spent that night in his office, finalizing preparations. Candace's laughter drifted up from the kitchen where she planned the party layout with Bridget and the other enablers. It's perfect, he heard her say. Everyone who matters will be there to see it. Rod smiled grimly at his computer screen. She had no idea how right she was. The day of Candace's birthday party dawned bright and hot, matching the anticipation burning in Rod Conway's chest. He watched from their bedroom window as the catering van arrived, followed by Zach's polished Mercedes pulling into their driveway far too comfortably. Rod. Candace's voice carried up the stairs. The projection system guys are here. Make yourself useful and show them where to set up. He smiled, knowing she'd interpret it as submission rather than satisfaction. The technical team, actually specialists from his tactical unit, began installing the birthday gift with practiced efficiency. Latest model, Rod explained as Candace breezed through. Perfect for showing those fitness videos you love so much. She barely acknowledged him, too busy texting on her phone. Her red dress left little to imagination, the same one she'd bought for competition prep according to their credit card statement. The house filled quickly with Candace's chosen audience. Gym rats in tight clothes, enabling wives who'd covered for her affairs, a few uncomfortable firefighters who'd come out of loyalty to Rod. Marshall arrived with 2 uniformed officers he introduced as friends from the precinct. Everything ready? Marshall muttered, accepting a drink. Rod nodded slightly. Jillian's outside with the full documentation. Officers have everything they need? Just waiting for your signal. Zach worked the room like he owned it, his trainer's physique on display in a shirt 2 sizes too small. He kept a calculated distance from Candace, but their glances told the story to anyone paying attention. Such a power couple, Bridget gushed to the other wives. The way he pushes her to be her best. Unlike some husbands, Lorraine added with a pointed look at Rod. He busied himself being the perfect host, taking coats, refreshing drinks, adjusting the projection system with apparent incompetence that made Candace roll her eyes. At least try not to embarrass me, she hissed, adjusting her dress. These people respect success. Oh, I know exactly what they respect, Rod replied mildly. Time for your big announcement? Candace grabbed a champagne glass, tapping it for attention. The room quieted as she took center stage, Zach hovering nearby with a proprietary smile. Thank you all for celebrating with me today, she beamed. As you know, I recently qualified for my first fitness competition. Appreciative murmurs from the crowd. I couldn't have done it without my amazing trainer, Zach. He showed me what I was capable of. The double meaning hung thick in the air. A few wives giggled. And yes, she added with false graciousness, even Rod finally made himself useful by funding my training. I guess even firefighters can support real achievement sometimes. Rod moved to the laptop, connected to the projection system. Speaking of support, he said clearly, I have a special tribute to my wife's dedication. The lights dimmed. The giant screen lit up with crisp high-definition footage from the gym's private training room. Candace smiled, expecting to see her posed routines. Her smile froze as the first intimate scene played. Then another. And another. What are you doing? She whispered, color draining from her face. The footage continued. Candace and Zach planning their future, mocking Rod, discussing how they'd spend his money after the divorce. Then came Zach's recorded confession. Sorry, babe, someone paid double to record everything. Business is business. The room had gone deathly silent. Candace stood rigid, the cake knife gripped white-knuckled in her hand. Zach made a break for the door but found Marshall and his friends blocking the way. The only thing small here is your future net worth, Rod announced, nodding to his lawyer who stepped forward with divorce papers. Happy birthday, honey. You can't prove anything, Candace sputtered. I'll say you harassed me, tracked me illegally. Actually, Jillian spoke up from the doorway. Everything was obtained legally through licensed investigation. I have sworn statements from gym employees, credit card records, bank transfers. She patted a thick folder. Plus evidence of Mr. Grimes' other extortion attempts. Zach's arrogance crumbled. Look, Conway, we can work something out. Officers, Marshall cut in. I believe you have some questions about certain controlled substances found in Mr. Grimes' private training room? The next hours passed in a blur of police statements and shocked departures. The enabling wives slunk away, their own husbands' expressions promising future conversations. Bridget couldn't meet Will's eyes as he escorted her out. 6 months later, Rod sat in his dress uniform at the Chicago Fire Department's awards ceremony. His promotion to Chief of Tactical Rescue had made headlines, partly due to his handling of the forest fire crisis, partly due to the scandal's public aftermath. His mother beamed from the front row, fully recovered thanks to the experimental treatment. Next to her sat Sophia Chun, the burn unit surgeon who'd worked with his team during the fire. Their relationship had grown slowly, naturally, built on mutual respect rather than superficial attraction. Candace's attempts at retaliation had backfired spectacularly. Her claims of harassment crumbled when Jillian presented the complete investigation. Zach, facing multiple lawsuits from other clients' husbands, had turned on her completely, providing evidence of steroid use that got her banned from competitions. The last Rod heard, she was working at a small-town gym 3 states away, her dreams of fitness fame shattered. Zach had it even worse. He'd lost his training certification and now cleaned pools for a living. His client list reduced to actual swimming pools rather than wealthy wives. The annual fundraiser for firefighters' families brought everything full circle. Rod watched Bridget and other former enablers make awkward excuses to leave early, unable to face the consequences of their choices. His mother squeezed his hand, wisdom earned through hardship evident in her eyes. Some fires need to burn, son. They clear the way for new growth. Rod looked at Sophia, who'd stood by him through the ugliest parts of the divorce, understanding his need for justice rather than simple revenge. She'd seen past the scandal to the man beneath, just as he'd seen past her professional exterior to the warmth within. Sometimes he agreed, raising his glass to their future. The smallest spark lights the biggest fire. The truth of it echoed through the gathering. Everyone who had enabled, denied, or participated in Candace's betrayal had reaped the consequences. But Rod had emerged stronger, his life rebuilt on a foundation of honesty rather than lies. In the end, that made all the difference. Epilogue 1 year later. The small-town gym in Cedar Rapids, Iowa bore little resemblance to the sleek Chicago fitness center where Candace Conway had once reigned as queen. Now simply Candace Peters again. She wiped down the basic equipment for minimum wage, her designer workout gear replaced by generic cotton uniforms. Ms. Peters, her 20-something manager called out. The bathrooms need cleaning. She gripped the cleaning spray bottle, knuckles white. A year ago, she'd been preparing for her fitness competition debut. Now, she couldn't even get a job as a personal trainer, her certification permanently revoked after the steroid scandal. The drug test results Zach had provided showed years of sustained use, destroying any chance of appeal. Her phone, no longer the latest iPhone but a basic prepaid model, showed another rejected job application. No respectable gym would touch her. The scandal had gone viral in fitness circles, her name becoming synonymous with cautionary tales about trainer-client relationships. The 300-square-foot studio apartment she now called home was a far cry from the luxury house she'd shared with Rod. The divorce settlement had been brutal, their prenup voided by evidence of her infidelity and financial misconduct. She'd lost everything, including her carefully cultivated social media following of aspiring fitness models. Across town at the municipal pool, Zach Grimes scrubbed algae from concrete walls. The former personal trainer's muscled physique had softened, his designer stubble now just unkempt. Pool cleaning paid barely enough to cover child support for the kid he'd never known about, until one of his former clients' paternity tests hit the tabloids. "Hey, steroid man," teenagers sometimes shouted from the fence. "Want to sell us some juice?" The multiple lawsuits from other betrayed husbands had stripped him of everything. His training certification, revoked. His client list, exposed. His carefully constructed image as a professional athlete-turned-trainer, shattered by evidence of his own steroid use and dealing. His phone lit up with another threatening message from a former client's husband. They kept finding him, no matter how many times he changed his number. The videos he'd recorded for blackmail had become his own undoing. Every client, a potential lawsuit waiting to happen. Back in Chicago, Rod Conway's Tactical Rescue Unit had expanded its jurisdiction. As chief, he'd implemented new training protocols that were being adopted by departments across the country. The promotion had come with a corner office overlooking the city he protected, but he still spent most of his time in the field with his team. "Chief," his secretary announced, "Dr. Chan is here for lunch." Sophia Chin entered, her surgeon's confidence matching his own calm authority. Their relationship had grown naturally after meeting during the forest fire crisis, built on mutual respect and understanding. She'd supported him through the divorce without trying to rush his healing, earning the approval of both his team and his mother. "Ready for the fundraiser tonight?" she asked, settling into the visitor's chair. "Almost. Just waiting on final numbers from Rhonda." Rhonda Martinez, his former station administrator, had been promoted to Department Communications Director. Her efficiency in handling media during the scandal had revealed talents wasted on basic paperwork. Marshall called. Sophia mentioned. "Says Candace tried contacting your mother again." Rod's expression hardened slightly. His mother, fully recovered thanks to the experimental treatment, had received several desperate messages from his ex-wife seeking reconciliation. Each one returned unopened. "Mom's too busy enjoying her cruise," he replied. The treatment worked better than anyone expected. Across town, Willard James led a training session for new recruits. His divorce from Bridget had been quieter than Rod's public exposure, but no less final. The Enabler Wives network had crumbled, each marriage facing its own reckoning. Bridget worked as a receptionist now, her social circle reduced to other divorced enablers who gathered for wine nights to bemoan their fate. Their attempts to rewrite history, casting themselves as victims of Zach's manipulation, found little sympathy in Chicago's social circles. Jillian Martinez's private investigation firm had flourished after the case. The Conway method became her trademark, methodical documentation of infidelity combined with financial forensics. She'd hired 2 more investigators just to handle cases from Rod's firefighting community, where other wives had followed Candace's example with different trainers. The annual Firefighters Family Foundation Gala proved how much had changed. Rod and Sophia arrived to find his team and their legitimate spouses already gathered. The Enabler wives who'd once dominated these events were conspicuously absent, their husbands now accompanied by new partners or proudly attending solo. "Quite a difference," Marshall observed, joining them at the bar. His own career had advanced, the scandal's investigation leading to broader cases of fraud in the fitness industry. "Remember last year's gala?" Rod did. It had been shortly after the divorce, when Chicago society was still buzzing with details of Candace's downfall. She tried attending with her lawyer, hoping to salvage some social connections. The silent rejection had been absolute. "Saw her Facebook post," Marshall continued, still claiming she'll make a comeback once the lies are exposed. "How's that working out?" Sophia asked dryly. "About as well as Zach's new career. Guest pool cleaning doesn't have the same cachet as personal training." The latest update had Zach living in his mother's basement in Milwaukee, his attempt at opening a supplement shop shut down by multiple violations. His new social media profile listed him as a lifestyle coach, but his only followers were bots and other disgraced trainers. Candace's own attempts at reinvention had failed spectacularly. Her tell-all blog about being victimized by the fitness industry attracted only trolls sharing screenshots from Zach's videos. Her appeals for crowdfunding legal fees were flagged as fraudulent. Even her attempt to teach yoga at a senior center ended when someone recognized her from the scandal. The Enabler wives faced their own consequences. Lorraine's husband had run for local office. The scandal cost him the election. Regina's interior design business lost its high-end clients. Bridget's attempt to become a social media influencer collected more mockery than followers. "Remember that saying about karma?" We'll join their conversation. "Never thought I'd see it play out so perfectly." Rod smiled, watching Sophia chat with his mother. The elegant surgeon had no interest in fitness competitions or social media followers. Her confidence came from saving lives, her beauty enhanced by genuine compassion. Some fires, his mother had told him, burn away the dead would so new growth can flourish. The wisdom of it echoed through every aspect of his rebuilt life. His career soared higher than ever, his tactical unit's reputation drawing recruiters from across the country. His relationship with Sophia deepened naturally, their shared values creating a partnership stronger than any gym-forged attraction. Even the scandal had transformed into something positive. The Firefighters Family Foundation now included programs helping first responders identify and escape toxic relationships. Rod's story became a case study in handling betrayal with strategic precision rather than emotional reaction. The foundation's legal fund, Initially created to help firefighters' families with medical bills, expanded to assist other husbands trapped in similar situations. Marshall's investigation had revealed a pattern of trainers targeting first responders' wives, taking advantage of long shifts and irregular schedules. "Chief," a young firefighter approached their group. "Sorry to interrupt, but we've got a situation developing downtown." Rod checked his phone, multiple units responding to a high-rise fire. Sophia squeezed his hand, understanding in her eyes. "Go," she said. "I'll handle things here." As he headed out with his team, Rod reflected on how different this scene would have played out a year ago. No angry texts about missed parties. No guilt trips about choosing duty over drama. Just the clean certainty of purpose he'd always felt in his work, now extended to every aspect of his life. Later that night, after the fire was contained and the victims saved, Rod found a moment of quiet on the apparatus floor. His phone showed a missed call from an Iowa number, Candace's latest attempt at contact. He deleted it without listening to the message. On his drive home, he passed the gym where it had all started. The building stood empty now, its reputation tainted by the scandal. A for-lease sign hung where Zach's promotional posters had once attracted vulnerable clients. Sophia waited up, her surgeon's understanding of emergency calls evident in the late-night coffee and comfortable silence. No demands, no accusations, just the steady support he'd never known he was missing. "Proud of you," she said simply. Rod looked at her, seeing their future in her quiet confidence. "Some fires," he replied, echoing his mother's wisdom, "light the way forward." In Iowa, Candace stared at her unanswered call log. The small gym's mirror reflected what she'd become. A cautionary tale, a whispered warning, a testament to karma's aim. She'd played with fire, believing herself fireproof. She'd learned too late. Every fire leaves ashes, but only the strongest rise from them. And Rod Conway had emerged stronger than ever, leaving her to sweep up the remnants of her burned-out dreams.
This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy the story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.
I was devastated when I found out my wife had been in bed with another man twice and was about to do it again. I've read about the overwhelming emotions that hit a person when they realize their once solid and reliable marriage is now just a story. When the emotional storm settled, my marriage was unrecognizable. Everything was gone. Trust, respect, admiration, concern, and love had all disappeared. All that remained was devastation, pushing me to give up and walk away. I wanted to end my marriage. There was nothing worth saving. My wife had turned our life into a pile of garbage. Susie and I had a bad fight about remodeling our living room. She thought the furniture was old and wanted to redecorate, but I explained it was only 2 years old, expensive, and not worth replacing. She insisted on something new, and I may have made a mistake by suggesting she was tired of me. She sarcastically said she might go to bed with someone else, and in anger, I shouted that she should decide what she wants, but not expect me to wait for her. When she mentioned she should have married Bill instead of me, I got furious, yelled that I never wanted to hear her name again, and refused to buy new furniture. The argument ended, and I left for the club to cool down. Bill had always been my main rival, the golden boy in our community. He once had his eye on my wife, but she chose me. Though they met during a short separation, he almost succeeded in winning her over. Despite my hard work and success, Bill's seemingly effortless prosperity made me jealous. I had no interest in pursuing a career in business. My upbringing emphasized the values of hard work, honesty, and reliability. I was taught never to harbor jealousy towards others' success. Despite these principles, a certain sensitivity lingered within me, particularly concerning Susie. The memory of their first meeting and the way he touched her remains etched in my mind. Around 9 in the evening, my home phone rang on my mobile. Deciding to let it go to voicemail, I avoided speaking to my wife. Stress and a few beers fueled my decision. I feared uttering unpleasant words that I might later regret. Upon listening to the voicemail, the message conveyed an apology for an earlier exchange. The caller urged me to contact Susie since I wouldn't be returning home soon. The message hinted at going out alone, concluding with a cryptic remark, "It wasn't enough." As I began to recover from our earlier dispute, anger resurfaced. Pouring another beer, I consumed it hastily before setting out to find her. Checking all the town's bar parking lots proved futile. Her car was nowhere in sight. Suspecting she might be with someone familiar, I headed to Patty's best friend's house. To my dismay, Susie's car was parked there. Dave, Patty's husband, greeted me at the door, mentioning the night out and their decision to go bar hopping. When I inquired about Patty's car, he confirmed their presence at a bachelor party. Determined to locate them, I visited the bachelor's place, discovering Patty's car in the parking lot. Contemplating a direct confrontation with Susie, I opted to sober up in the car before taking any action. Around 11, they emerged from the bachelor's place and departed in Patty's car. Following at a discreet distance, they made their way to a downhill bar, as Dave had suggested. Observing from the parking lot, I anticipated their move to the next location. At precisely 11:30, they arrived at what seemed to be their final stop, a pub and a hotel. Concerned about Susie's intentions, I realized I needed to find out more. Attempting a makeshift disguise with a baseball cap and a plain t-shirt from the trunk, I sneaked into the pub. Despite not being completely sober and my failed attempt at anonymity, thanks to my name on the t-shirt, I figured it was better than no disguise at all. Inside, I spotted Susie with Bill, seated at the back of the bar, engrossed in conversation. Seeking a discreet vantage point, I noticed an empty bus behind Susie. Silently moving there, I overheard their entire conversation, except for a few whispered moments. Susie thanked Bill for coming, and he reciprocated the sentiment. Bill reminisced about their time together 7 years ago, and twice since my marriage to Susie. Their reunion tonight seemed driven by a desire for revenge after our earlier fight. As I listened, the painful truth unfolded. Susie had betrayed me twice before and planned to do so again tonight. Despite her professed love, her actions revealed a selfish and indifferent nature. Her motive wasn't love. It was revenge, shattering my perception of our relationship. The conversation left me devastated, and I realized I no longer loved her. It was a profound loss, and I nearly succumbed to tears, accepting that it was over. I waited, contemplating how much time would elapse before they proceeded to the room. The words exchanged between them hinted at Susie's readiness, and I could almost envision the smile on her face. Aware of her presence based on their conversation, my anger simmered beneath the surface as they stood up and made their way to the elevators. Suppressing the urge to lash out physically, I trailed them to the lobby. Uncertain of their exact floor, I approached the receptionist and requested a call to Pill's room. He angrily answered, correcting my misconception that it was room 422, not 312. Threatening police involvement, he forcefully hung up the phone. Taking the elevator to the 4th floor, I approached room 422. Eavesdropping until their actions became apparent, I knocked assertively, savoring the anticipation of disrupting their illicit rendezvous. Stepping back from the peephole, I forcefully slammed the door, causing the safety chain to break. The shocking scene revealed my with nothing on wife on the bed, her face turning pale as she screamed. Pill protested, exclaiming, "Oh my God, no!" as he recovered. He demanded my departure, threatening to summon security. Despite Susie's pleas, I sternly informed her not to return home. Surprisingly calm, I sat in the car for a while to calm down further. I waited to see if the police would show up or if Susie would leave with Pill. About 15 minutes later, Bill left the hotel and Susie got into her car. They didn't stay in the hotel room after I left, but the damage had been done. Adding insult to injury, or as they say, pouring gasoline on the fire, gave me an idea. I went home and went to bed. I'm not sure when the phone rang, but it was Patty calling. She explained that Susie is staying with Dave and her, so I shouldn't worry. I told Patty that I won't worry about Susie anymore. I don't care. Patty woke me up unnecessarily. I asked about the time, and she said it's 3 a.m., claiming I can't say I don't care, knowing I love Susie and she loves me. Patty shared that Susie is at their place, crying about her mistakes tonight, wanting forgiveness, and asking to come back home. I informed Patty that Susie can't return home and asked about her previous involvement with Pill. Patty expressed relief for not having a serious hangover and being up since 8 a.m. By 10 a.m., I was ready to face Susie. I called Patty and told her Susie could come back home if she wanted. I stood at the entrance when Susie arrived, accompanied by Dave and Patty, probably to ensure no physical damage. Seeing a pile in the front yard, Susie asked what it was. I explained it's everything reminding us of each other, including gifts, photos, and old furniture. I set our wedding photo on fire as a symbolic act, signaling the end of our marriage. Flames quickly engulfed everything, leaving only ashes and charred furniture frames. I told Susie she won and hoped it was worth it. Our marriage is over, and she can take everything. I don't want anything and hope not to remind her of me. She'll get details from my lawyer. Shortly after, sirens approached, police arrived, and firefighters extinguished the remaining embers. I apologized for the trouble, clarifying I burned the remnants of the marriage. I was taken into custody. As they led me away, I saw Susie crying. I spent a couple of days in jail, and a psychiatrist was called to assess my mental state. They discovered that I was distressed and devastated, but still mentally sound, surprisingly. They might have released me earlier, but they wanted to observe me for a few days just to be certain. I paid the bail and retrieved my car from the office parking lot, where I had stored the things I wanted to keep, mainly clothes and personal items. Then my trial began, and I admitted guilt to all charges, receiving a $5,000 fine plus court costs. It was a small cost to end my shattered marriage. Susie contested the divorce, persistently leaving voicemails on my mobile, pleading for forgiveness and reconciliation. Despite the $5,000 cost, I never heard from her after leaving a message on her home phone, expressing that while she claimed it meant nothing to her, it meant everything to me. The divorce was finalized, and I gave her everything she desired just to put it behind me. Pill's wife discovered the situation, divorced him, leaving him in a difficult situation. Susie wasn't the only wife he had comforted during marital troubles. A couple of weeks after finding him with his wife in a hotel room, I encountered Pill in a bar. I suggested he might face a serious accident when his divorce was finalized, and he started selling off his remaining possessions. Soon, he left town, and not many people seemed to miss him. Occasionally, I bump into Susie on the streets, and she apologizes, asking if I'll call her to talk. I just nod and walk away. To this day, I haven't called her, though she continues to ask. Maybe someday I'll decide to call her. Story 2. My wife and I have been together for 2 decades. We first met during our freshman year of high school and have been inseparable ever since. We shared many milestones, from losing our purity to each other to attending prom and even going to the same college after graduation. After finishing college, we got married and settled down to build our life together. Starting a family was always part of our plan, and when we secured good jobs, we decided to make that dream a reality. Fast forward 11 years, and we now have 2 kids, own our home, and are on a path to early retirement for travel and other experiences we've longed for. Everything seemed like a dream until tragedy struck. My sister-in-law was diagnosed with lung cancer. She was not just family, but also my wife's best friend. My wife supported her throughout her fight against the disease, but sadly, she eventually passed away. It was a devastating blow to our entire family, my wife especially. My sister-in-law was a beacon of light in our lives. My wife took it the hardest because they were incredibly close, sharing everything from shopping trips to personal secrets. I stood by my wife during her grief, helping her navigate through the toughest period of her life. After about 6 months, she started to recover. During her mourning, she read through her sister's journals and notebooks, trying to understand the emotions and provide support. What hit my wife deeply was the feeling that her sister hadn't accomplished enough in her life, taken too soon. Reading the journal entries made my wife realize her sister's unfulfilled aspirations. Motivated by her sister's untimely departure, my wife expressed a newfound determination to live life fully. She wanted to travel, experience skydiving, and savor every moment. I wholeheartedly supported this mindset, aligning with the reason I had been working 60 hours a week since college to retire early. In the coming weeks, my wife embraced this philosophy, taking pottery classes, teaching herself rock climbing, and even planning a bungee jumping adventure for her and our son. It seemed like she was fully embracing this new adventurous lifestyle. I didn't pay much attention to it. I felt happy for her as she was recovering from the loss of her sister. However, one evening after she returned from the climbing gym, her behavior seemed different. Before that, She had been enthusiastic and positive about embracing a new chapter in her life. After dinner, when the kids were in their rooms, she took me out to the patio. We shared a couple of glasses of wine and gazed at the stars. Towards the end of our conversation, she brought up the idea of both of us having a hall pass. For those unfamiliar, a hall pass in a committed monogamous relationship is a one-time opportunity for both partners to have closeness with someone outside the relationship. I was completely taken aback by her suggestion. It seemed to come out of nowhere. So I asked her why she was bringing it up. She reassured me that she loved me, but felt like she might be missing out on a part of life because she had only ever been with me. She tried to phrase it in a way that wouldn't hurt me, but it was impossible not to feel terrible when she said that. I expressed my lack of support for the idea. We had been married for 20 years, and I couldn't understand why it suddenly became an issue. I had no desire to be with anyone else, and I wasn't comfortable with her being with someone else either. We were about to go back inside, but I paused and asked her if there was someone she was interested in. She hesitated to tell me the truth, but after a few moments, she admitted that there was someone at the climbing gym she found attractive. She mentioned he had been flirty, and he recently invited her out for drinks. Although she assured me that she declined and made it clear she was married, I went to bed that night feeling uneasy. It took a few days for me to come to terms with what she had suggested. I was deeply hurt, but eventually I forgave her, and we pretended the conversation never happened. About a week later, she told me about an outdoor climbing class offered by the gym, and she wanted to sign up for it. One Saturday, she left early in the morning for the class, or at least that's what I thought. Since our daughter had started lying about her whereabouts, we asked her to leave her location on Snapchat maps for verification. That afternoon, when our daughter claimed she was going to a friend's house, I checked the maps. Everything seemed fine on our daughter's end, but I noticed my wife's avatar was in the heart of the city. I was a bit perplexed because I had been informed that she was heading to a park about 30 minutes outside of the city. Checking the location, I discovered she was at a bar. I tried to make sense of it, thinking she might be hanging out with people from the climbing gym after their climb. However, a sinking feeling in my gut couldn't be ignored, recalling what she had mentioned about a guy from her climbing gym inviting her for drinks. Wondering if she was there with him wasn't too much of a stretch. I was home alone, and the bar happened to be about a 15-minute walk from the house, so I took the dog for a walk, keeping an eye on the map. Upon reaching the bar, I peered through the windows and saw my wife sitting at a table with a man, leaning close and smiling as they chatted for 2 years. The man reached across the table, holding my wife's hand, and she allowed it. While hand-holding isn't necessarily cheating, it hinted at something more. I went home before my wife spotted me there and waited for her return. Throughout the wait, I was undecided on whether to confront her or investigate on my own. When she came home and, before saying anything to me, went straight to the shower, I tried to initiate a conversation, but she dismissed me, citing post-climbing sweat. This confirmed in my mind that something had happened while she was with that man. She had left her gym bag near our bed, and I noticed her phone was still inside. I pulled it out and searched for information about the man, checking her text messages. I found a chat with an unsaved number starting about a week before she asked me about the hall pass. Scanning through the messages for keywords indicating an affair, I found a few exchanged pictures and explicit messages. Then I saw plans for them to meet at the bar, even coming up with a lie to tell me and his partner. I had no idea who the guy was, but I discovered him by checking the climbing gym's social media, where he was clearly featured in some pictures. He was tagged in everything, and through some digging, I learned he was married with a newborn baby. I was disgusted by what I discovered. Hurt doesn't even begin to describe the pain I felt. I had been with my wife for 20 years, and she was willing to throw all of that away because she wanted to be with another man. I was furious and utterly disgusted by the reprehensible actions of both of them. At the end of their message chain, there was the name of a restaurant, along with a date and time. A week had passed since I found out my wife was cheating on me, and I devised a plan to catch her in the act. While contemplating it, I realized that the wife of her affair partner deserved to know as well. On the day of the planned meeting, I sent a dozen roses to the partner's wife, including details about the restaurant on the card. I hoped it would make her believe he had a surprise for her. Waiting outside the restaurant, I observed her heading in. I followed her inside, and we both noticed our partners holding hands simultaneously. She hurried over, started yelling at him in front of everyone. My wife was surprised to see me, but she quickly got up, insisting it wasn't what it seemed. I asked her to explain the text messages, and she fell silent. I informed her that I was ending our relationship and that she could expect to see me in court. We spent the next 8 months in a divorce battle, mainly over custody. Both of us wanted primary custody, but we ended up with joint custody. I kept the house, and she received no spousal payments. Her affair partner, also divorced, had to pay child support and alimony to his ex. My ex-wife and I recently finalized the divorce proceedings, and we are finally done with each other. I honestly don't know how to move forward. Having only been with one woman and feeling betrayed, I'm unsure about the next steps. My girlfriend and I were together for 3 years before everything fell apart. I believed she was the one and planned to marry her, but she cheated on me with my cousin. It all began when we met at a nightclub 3 years ago. She was the hottest woman there, and I didn't think I had a chance, but I tried anyway. Surprisingly, she was interested, and we've been together since. She moved into my apartment 1.5 years into our relationship, and I didn't question it because I was deeply in love. Then, my cousin, who used to live down south, got a job in New York. I helped him get an apartment in my building, excited to have family close by. We were good friends, often playing games online. I thought it would be nice having family nearby once he settled in, and we hung out quite often. He never hid that he found my girlfriend attractive, but I never thought he'd act on his feelings. I never noticed anything going on between them while I was around. They respected each other's space. A few months after he moved in, I was grabbing coffee with a friend, and my cousin showed up with his new girlfriend, who happened to be my girlfriend's work friend. We tried to set them up at a party, but it didn't seem to be going well. They were keeping things low profile, not wanting to pressure their relationship. Finding it amusing, I wanted to surprise my girlfriend with the news. I texted her to come to the cafe for a surprise, but she replied that she couldn't because she was hanging out with her friend. Ironically, the friend she claimed to be with was sitting across from me at the cafe. She lied about her whereabouts, and I, in turn, lied to my friends about her having a migraine. When I got home, she was nowhere to be seen. However, I noticed makeup on the bed, and she had clearly tried on a couple of outfits. I felt really nervous, thinking something was going on that I didn't know about, and I needed to talk to someone. I walked down the hall to chat with my cousin. Despite loud music playing in the background, I knocked on the door persistently until he heard me. After some shuffling, he opened the door, trying to dismiss it by saying he had company and would come over later. Once again, I had no reason to believe my girlfriend was cheating on me with my cousin, so I didn't assume it was her in there. It only dawned on me when I saw a shirt I bought her for her birthday on the arm of the couch behind my cousin. I played it cool, nodded my head, and returned to my apartment immediately. Once there, I searched for any other signs of cheating. Eventually, I went into her laptop, checking her Facebook messages with my cousin. Doing that completely shattered my heart. In the messages, my cousin asked her what she liked about me. She mentioned finding me funny with a good personality, but he insisted I wasn't her type, claiming he was. My girlfriend didn't disagree. They were extremely flirty, and at one point, she messaged him the classic "just got out of the shower" message. After that, they exchanged suggestive pictures with very explicit messages. Earlier that day, my cousin had messaged her, expressing his inability to stop thinking about her and his need to be with her. He instructed her to come up with an excuse to visit his apartment, and she did. Realizing it was over between my girlfriend and me, I decided to cut my cousin off entirely from my life, leaving no trace for everyone I knew. I captured screenshots of everything I saw, sending them to myself just in case my girlfriend attempted to lie. Fortunately, my name was on the lease, and hers wasn't since she moved into my apartment. This meant I could at least kick her out. When she came home a few hours later, I immediately told her to leave. Confused, she asked why, and I revealed that I had discovered her involvement with my cousin. I insisted she vacate the apartment or face legal action. I left for the night, giving her a 48-hour notice to leave. During my absence, both she and my cousin called me numerous times, but I ignored every call. Meanwhile, I gathered all my relatives in a group chat and disclosed everything about the situation. Everyone, including my cousin's parents, expressed deep disappointment and offered apologies, though they weren't directly involved. I received several messages from my cousin, calling me a coward and claiming family members labeled him a pig. I didn't care. He was, indeed, a pig. Since my girlfriend and I shared many friends, I created a group chat and informed them of the incident. They were shocked and firmly sided with me. Some girls in the chat revealed that my girlfriend had tried to call them seeking a place to stay. Despite feeling bad, they declined, as they didn't believe her actions were justified. Returning 2 days later, I found my girlfriend had left the apartment. Unsure of her whereabouts, I discovered that she stayed with my cousin. However, their personalities clashed, and he kicked her out after a week. After that, I lost track of where she went. I guess I learned that you really can't put your trust in just anyone, not even family. I'm Jason, and I had a 5-year relationship with my ex-girlfriend Bella. We met at a unisex salon where she worked as a hairdresser, and we hit it off from the start. Although I liked her initially, I never expected our connection to grow into a deep love. After several visits to the salon, I gathered the courage to ask for her number, and she agreed since we were already familiar with each other. The typical story unfolded. We went out, got to know each other, and eventually fell in love. Our decision to not rush into settling down early stemmed from my past heartbreak with an ex-girlfriend. I wanted to take things slow with Bella. After 5 years of dating, I felt it was time to make our commitment official. 2 months before the wedding, Bella surprised me with the news that she was pregnant. While it wasn't part of our original plan, I welcomed it as a blessing. Initially, Bella and I had agreed to wait 3 to 4 years after marriage to have a child. She had experienced 2 feticides in the past, and I wanted to avoid that for her. Despite the unexpected joy of impending parenthood, planning a wedding and expecting a child simultaneously wasn't easy. Bella insisted on the grand wedding she had always dreamed of, with an expensive venue, gown, and other costly elements. While she had saved money for the wedding, I thought it made more sense to allocate our budget towards securing a home for our growing family and addressing other essential needs. However, she believed in making our wedding a once-in-a-lifetime event, arguing that we had many years ahead to focus on our child. After considering her perspective, we proceeded with the wedding she envisioned. We booked the venue, paid for the cake she desired, and she covered expenses like her gown, hairdo, and other necessities with her bridesmaids. Despite my internal reservations, I was genuinely excited about the upcoming events. I was about to marry the woman I loved, and I was thrilled that, in our 5 years of dating, she had never betrayed my trust. I thought she was a faithful partner who would stay true to me as we aged together. Unfortunately, I was mistaken. I delved too deeply into the future while my present was already a mess. Unbeknownst to me, as I smoothly planned our wedding, investing my savings to create her dream ceremony, Bella was cheating on me with someone close. I wouldn't have discovered this if her jealous lover hadn't confessed the night before our wedding. That evening, as I returned home early to prepare for my bachelor's party, my best man called, requesting a meeting to share something important. We agreed to meet at a nearby coffee shop. When we sat down, he looked uneasy, apologized in advance, and said he needed to get something off his chest. I feared he might cancel on me the night before my wedding, but what he revealed was worse. He disclosed his history with Bella, claiming he loved her too much to witness our marriage. At first, I thought it was a prank, searching for hidden cameras or friends recording us. However, he showed me a sensual picture of him and Bella, and my heart sank. He also shared a text from Bella about sneaking into her hotel room later that night for our wedding. Seeing that message dispelled all my doubts, and I tried to contain my hurt as a man, but tears welled up. The revelations continued. He admitted to being responsible for Bella's pregnancy. They planned for her to tell me it was mine, avoiding suspicion and preventing a breakup. At that moment, my world seemed to come to a standstill. Countless thoughts raced through my mind, making it tough to accept that the woman I loved and held high expectations for in our relationship was carrying my best man's child. I was furious, imagining if my anger were visible, my best man would have seen smoke. When I'd heard enough, I exploded in anger, throwing the chair I sat on and storming out. Trying to control my rage, I punched him when he followed and grabbed my arm. Then I drove off. In my car, I called the wedding. Her wedding never happened, and I can't forgive her for what she did. All my efforts and sacrifices of 5 years vanished. I yearn for legal recourse for heartbreaks and infidelity, wishing to drag her to court to make her pay for the wasted years and pain she caused. We haven't seen each other, and she lacked the courage to face me after I called off the wedding. I moved into the house I rented for us as a surprise, healing and moving forward daily. Surprisingly, my former close friend and best man tried to apologize and explain their affair, but I wasn't interested. I told him we could no longer be friends, and he had no place in my life. Since then, we haven't made contact, and I'll never speak to him again, considering it childish. But I don't care. Bella didn't keep his child. She aborted it as payback, and they are no longer together. I've learned my lesson, and won't love deeply again. At times, I wish I had invested my resources and sacrifices in my life, a far better use than wasting them on a promiscuous woman. But as they say, where there is life, there is hope.
From the start, our relationship was predictable and routine. Amy and I met at a work event, bonding over shared experiences with life, marriage, and navigating blended families. When we got married, it felt like everything fell into place. We both had kids from previous relationships, so building a family took some work, but we managed, or so I thought. As time went on, we settled into a routine of raising the kids and focusing on our careers. Life had its challenges, but we always made time to catch up over dinner, even after the kids moved out. We had a life filled with shared responsibilities, vacations, and support for each other's struggles. Everything seemed fine, until the night Amy confessed. It was a typical evening, just the two of us having dinner. I'd made stir-fry since she was late from a school event, which was unusual. We always had dinner together, a tradition we kept to stay connected. Halfway through refilling my coffee, I realized I hadn't fully heard what Amy had just said. She was staring at me, waiting for my response. "What?" I asked, confused. "I don't get it. You're what?" "I've been seeing Cody," she said quickly. "The new gym teacher at school, Cody Bakerfield. You've met him." "I know who Cody is," I replied, feeling uneasy. "So you're seeing him? What does that mean?" Amy sighed. "We've become friends. I've been having lunch with him, and after school we've been going out sometimes." "Going out?" I asked, baffled. "Are you having an affair?" "Yes," she said, watching me closely. I stared in disbelief. "Yes, what? You're having an affair?" "Yes," she repeated, nodding solemnly. "Cliff, I'm telling you because I love and respect you. I always have." "Respect me? Love me?" I gasped. "It's true," she insisted. "You've always been my number one. Marrying you was the best thing that ever happened to me. I love you so much. I just couldn't keep seeing him without telling you." I stared at her, hoping this was some kind of joke. Amy loves me as much as I love her. She couldn't really be having an affair, but she didn't take it back. I was lost. "I don't even know what to say, Amy. I'm so confused." "Don't feel bad, Cliff," she said. "Yes, I've been seeing Cody, but he's just a friend. I don't love him. It hasn't changed anything between us." I clenched my jaw, still in shock. "How can you say you love me?" "I do love you," she insisted. "We have a great marriage, and I'll always value that. But I need other male friends, too." "I've never had a problem with your male friends," I replied. "I know, and I appreciate that. Cody's just a friend. But he's younger and makes me feel like a teenager again sometimes." "Stop," I shouted. My patience snapped. "I don't want to hear the details of your affair. Spare me." Amy, seeing my anger, softened her tone. "I'm sorry, honey. I just wanted to be honest. Yes, I'm seeing Cody, but no one knows. We've been careful. And that's supposed to make me feel better? I know it doesn't. I just want you to understand, Cliff. Cody will never replace you. He's just a fun distraction. I didn't mean to hurt you. I just couldn't hide it anymore." Seething, I repeated her words. "A fun guy? A distraction? Something I'll never miss?" "You selfish, conniving," I spat out, my face burning with rage. How could you? She let me vent. I guess I deserve that. I couldn't take any more. I stood up so fast my chair tipped over. Without a word, I stormed out of the room. Where are you going, Cliff? Amy called. Don't leave, please. I need to think, I shot back. Give me a minute. I walked out the back door, leaving her behind. I stormed out onto the deck, furious and trying to catch my breath. An affair? She's cheating on me. The disrespect made my blood boil. I pounded the railing, trying to calm down. I'm usually pretty level-headed, but hearing my wife talk about her infidelity was pushing me over the edge. For years, I'd relied on my calm demeanor as an accountant, keeping cool even with anxious clients. But this was personal. My wife of over 20 years was telling me she was seeing a younger guy from work. I'd met that guy, Cody, at a school event. Amy introduced him as a casual friend, and I foolishly believed her. Now I know the truth. My mind raced with images of what she'd said. I took deep breaths, knowing storming back in and yelling wouldn't help. I had to stay calm and figure out a way to handle this. Yelling would only make her dig in, and that wouldn't get me the information I needed. I needed details to understand the full scope of this. After about 10 minutes, I felt my heart rate return to normal. I walked back inside to face Amy, who was nervously fiddling with her coffee cup. As I sat down, she glanced up at me, but I raised my hand to stop her from speaking. Let's restart this, I said calmly, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm shocked, Amy. I never expected this. You don't have to be, Cliff, she responded, her voice soft. I raised my hand again to cut her off. Wait, what's your plan here? You think I'll just forgive and forget? You've been seeing someone behind my back and I'm supposed to move on like nothing happened? Amy shifted uncomfortably in her chair. Well, not exactly. I knew you'd be upset, but I didn't want to keep you in the dark anymore. I muttered under my breath, Jesus, so what did that slick guy say when you told him you were going to tell me? He thought it was for the best, she replied hesitantly. That's what he said? Not exactly, Amy clarified. Cody's not a bad guy, Cliff. He feels terrible about sneaking around. We both do. Really? Yes. Neither of us wants to ruin our marriage, she said, looking at me with a pleading expression. I was about to tell her she needed to end the affair when she sighed, her face hardening with determination. This is tough, but now that you know, I want to keep seeing him. Not too often, just occasionally, and after school hours. I was stunned by her audacity and could only manage a sarcastic, oh, of course. We sat there in silence, the tension thick between us, until she finally spoke again, looking pained. I'm so sorry, honey. I know this is hard, but he's a nice guy. We have fun together, and I do like him, but it won't affect us. You've got to be kidding, I said incredulously. No, it won't change anything between us. It hasn't so far, and it won't in the future. He's been a good friend to me, and honestly, I think he's been good for our marriage, too. Really? You're out of your mind. Cliff, think about it logically. Remember how tense things were last year. You even called me out for being difficult. Well, I was. Our marriage was in a rut when I first started seeing him, she explained. Oh, great, so he's a marriage counselor now? I shot back sarcastically. She ignored the sarcasm. Cody helped me adjust my attitude. I know you've noticed the change. We're more than friends, but I don't need to see him often. Just occasionally when you're busy. I love you, Cliff. I want to grow old with you, you know that. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So you're not ending the affair? You want me to accept this? It will end eventually, she assured me. He's younger, and we have different interests. Our feelings will fizzle out over time, just not right now. You're crazy, I said, unable to mask my disbelief. Please, Cliff, nothing between us will change. I'm still the same loving wife I've always been. We'll continue our relationship as usual. You haven't noticed anything different, have you? I hated to admit it, but she was right. I never suspected the reason behind the recent spike in our Zek's life. When we first started dating, Amy and I were very active, but over the years, as the kids got older, things slowed down. Even after they left for college, we never fully returned to our old rhythm. I didn't see it as a problem, figuring most couples our age weren't tearing up the sheets every night. But now, knowing what I did, I realized Amy was right. We had gotten back on track. I couldn't deny I was happy that we were now making love several times a week, just like when the kids were younger. When she asked if I'd noticed any difference while she was seeing Cody, the truth was, I hadn't. When I didn't answer, she spoke for me. Of course not, she said confidently. Even while seeing Cody, I've been here for you. We have a great Zek's life for our age, and I love it just as much as you do. Cody is just a small part of my life, nothing more. We've had a stable 20-year marriage, and You want to continue that? I asked, incredulous. Of course. I love you, she said. But how can I stay married to a cheating strumpet? I shot back. Her expression hardened. I'm not a strumpet, she said sharply. This is the first time I've ever cheated, and I've never been with a man I didn't have feelings for. So, you have feelings for him? I asked, outraged. How do I know you're not just waiting to replace me with him? It's not like that, Cliff, she insisted. You're my husband, and I love you. I'll never leave you. I just need some time with Cody, not all the time and not forever. Just until this urge is out of my system. It won't affect us, just like it hasn't for the past few months. I sat in silence, my mind racing with images of what she'd been doing with him. She kept talking, trying to justify her affair. It's better for us in the long run, Cliff. I've been more relaxed, more uninhibited in the bedroom. You've noticed, right? I haven't turned you down, and I've let you do things you've wanted for years. Since being with Cody, I've been able to fully express myself. No more hang-ups. You must have felt the difference. She was right again, and it infuriated me. Our sex life used to be pretty straightforward. Nothing wild, but satisfying. Amy was a generous lover, and we both enjoyed ourselves. But over the last few months, she'd become incredibly passionate. I thought it was because the kids had left or maybe a hormonal shift as she aged. Now I realized it was her affair with that young guy from school fueling the change. It was depressing. I'd always felt lucky to have her. Amy was a sexy divorcee, 4 years older, with 2 kids when we met. I fell for her right away, and we clicked. I was happy to marry her and raise her kids as my own. Her first husband was a deadbeat who abandoned them, and I stepped in as the only father her children knew. After 20 years of what I thought was a happy marriage, she dropped this bomb on me. Say something, Cliff, she urged, watching me closely. I know you're upset, but I don't want you to feel hurt. Let me help make this easier. You're still my number one. She stood up, smirking, and moved toward me seductively. I'm here for you, baby. Let me know what you need. When she tried to sit on my lap, I pushed her away. She looked hurt but didn't press it. I stood up abruptly and left the room. As I stormed out, she barely had time to say, "Wait!" before I was out the door and into my car. Driving aimlessly, I realized I needed space before doing something I'd regret. I considered heading to a bar to drown my anger. I found one nearby, parked, and ordered a beer, trying to clear my head. Later, I drove home with a plan. When I walked in, Amy was on her cell phone. She looked startled and whispered quickly, I have to go. He's back. Bye. By the tense look on her face, I suspected she was talking to her boyfriend. It stung, but I stayed calm. I needed to follow the bartender's advice, gather all the information tonight before deciding what to do next. I sat back down at the kitchen table, the cold coffee cup still in front of me. Amy looked serious. Cliff, she started, but I interrupted her. Hold on. I think I need to know how this affair started. Maybe it'll help me process this. So, how long, Amy? How long have you been breaking our vows? She sighed. Not long. We've been friends for a while, but it only turned physical a few months ago. She explained how Cody made her feel special and helped her explore her sexuality. She seemed relieved as she shared. So what now? I asked. You've been lying and cheating for months. How am I supposed to feel? You've been with a guy barely older than our kids, and I had no clue. You expect me to applaud your secrecy? No, Cliff, she said, reaching for my hand. I tensed but didn't pull away. I'm ashamed for deceiving you. I hated lying to you, but we were careful. I didn't want you to find out. Cody never pressured me. He was okay with seeing me occasionally and didn't want to ruin our marriage. That clearly changed, I said bitterly. Amy squeezed my hand. No matter what, I love you. Cody's a good guy, but he could never replace you. I told him we'd never be more than friends with benefits, and he agreed. We were discreet, even having lunch with other coworkers to avoid suspicion. No one ever knew. I'm sure you were a clever cheater, I snapped. Amy gave me a sad nod. On the outside, I was the faithful wife with a great job and friends. Inside, I was lying. I always saw myself as honest, but this affair made me hate myself. Our marriage is precious to me, and Cody was just temporary. My feelings for him don't compare to what I feel for you. I started to lose my sense of self because of the deceit. The solution is simple. Stop cheating. Yes, but I'm not sure I can right now, she admitted. I'd like to think I could just end it with Cody and everything would go back to normal, but I doubt it. Why? I asked, frustrated. We've built a great life, raised 2 kids, and now have time to enjoy each other. If you love me like you say, Giving him up shouldn't be a problem. She exhaled sharply and gave me a worried look. It might have been easy to stop at first, but now I'm not sure. Of course, I love you, Cliff, but these past few months have shown me another side of life, and I've learned more about myself and my needs. I don't know if I can just go back to how things were, even if I wanted to. I've tried to be the same loving wife, but being with Cody has made me see other possibilities. I yanked my hand away, struggling to stay calm. Other options, huh? I snapped. You can't stop screwing him? Is that it? I was good enough to marry and raise your kids, but now some young guy shows up and I'm not good enough anymore? That's not it at all, she said quickly. You've always been the best husband and father I could have asked for. But after so many years of marriage, I've changed. We both have. It's just natural, not bad. People evolve. I glared at her, speechless. She continued softly, Cliff, I don't want to hurt you. I know it may not seem like it, but it's true. We're going to stay together and nothing between us will change. I'll make sure of that. I love our life, our marriage, our kids, but I also enjoy this friendship with Cody. He makes me feel things I haven't felt in years. I hope you can understand and love me enough to let me have this. You witch, I whispered under my breath. If she heard, she didn't react. It's not a bad thing, Cliff. I'm always here for you. I just want things to stay as they are a little longer, not forever, just until I'm done with this. Then I'll end it with Cody and be yours completely again. I'm being honest because I don't want any more secrets. If you let me do this, I promise I'll make it up to you. I'll always be a good wife, and no one will ever know. Just give me this, and I'll reward you for the rest of our lives. This conversation was spiraling. I had started the night feeling great about my marriage, and within minutes I had gone from a happy husband to a miserable, betrayed one. My wife now had a lover, someone younger and no doubt more exciting than me. It took me a few minutes to gather myself. This was a lot to process. I thought I could reason with her, make her end the affair, but it was clear now. She had no plans to stop. She just wanted my permission to keep exploring her feelings. This was classic cheater's nonsense. You've been lying for months, and you're so good at it that I never suspected a thing. Now you admit to all the lies and cheating, promising to keep me as your husband. But how can I trust you again? You've lied not only to me, but to our kids, our friends, everyone. What's stopping you from changing your mind again? Maybe about Cody or some other guy in the future? Amy sighed in frustration because she knew I was right. She looked at me with teary eyes, wanting to argue, but couldn't. I'd never do that, and you know it, she finally said. You've got some nerve, I said bitterly. Acting so entitled, throwing your affair in my face. Why shouldn't I just leave you? I don't want a cheating wife. I should divorce you and be done with it. I expected those words to hurt, but Amy's expression softened. She looked at me with unexpected compassion and spoke with a new edge. I know this is hard right now, but divorce? That wouldn't be in your best interest, Cliff. Why? At least I'd have my pride. Her pitying look was infuriating. A divorce would hurt both of us, Cliff. At least I wouldn't have to deal with your affair. That's true, she said calmly. But I don't think you'd be happy with a divorce. Neither of us would. Her gaze locked onto mine. We live in a no-fault state. I'd get half of everything. The house, savings, retirement. And because you adopted Martha and Robbie, you'd have to help with their college costs. Plus, there's alimony. Since I don't earn much as a teacher, you'd be expected to support me. It could be a lot. I guess she and her lover had thought this through. So you'd take me to the cleaners, I said flatly. I don't want to, she said. I want to keep living and loving you like before. But if you divorce me, you'll owe a lot, and I'd still be free to see Cody. It'd be better for us to stay married. You'd have me as your loving wife, and we can keep having great sex. No one would ever know. I'll always keep you as my number one. Then she added in a sympathetic tone, I'll always be thankful for your open-mindedness about this, and I'll give you whatever you want. I just want some time with Cody. Not much, just a little. The rest of the time, I'll focus on making you happy. I was happy before you dumped this on me, I said bitterly. Now I know I'm just a fool, putting up with my unfaithful wife and that idiot you work with. It's not like that, Cliff. I started to walk away and she called out, Wait, don't leave, honey. We need to talk about this more. Please. There's nothing to discuss, Amy. You've made your ultimatum. Now I have to decide if I can accept it. There's nothing to worry about, she cried. Nothing between us will change, I promise. I don't want you to think about anything except how much I love you for giving me this freedom. I'll do anything to make you happy. Then end the affair right now. She sighed in frustration, looked down and whispered, I can't do that just yet, honey. I can't stop right now. Then there's nothing more to talk about. This conversation is over. I've heard enough. You've told me how you feel, and nothing I say will change your mind. At the same time, I'll never believe another word you say. I'm done trying to reason with a liar and a cheat. I went to the den and turned on the TV. I didn't care what was on. I was still reeling from the conversation. I thought about going to a hotel and leaving without a word. I was so angry. I wanted to hurt her like she hurt me, but I knew walking out and getting drunk wasn't my style. Maybe I'm too rational or too boring to do something reckless. I felt numb and exhausted. It was like a nightmare. How could she do this to me? I watched TV for another hour. A game was on, but I couldn't tell you a single detail. I heard her leave the kitchen. At some point, the sliding glass doors opened and closed when she went onto the back deck. I guess she was calling someone for privacy, probably her boyfriend telling him how our talk went. She came back in a while later and entered the den. I was in the recliner, so she couldn't sit next to me. She stood close, watching me. Are you okay, Cliff? She asked sweetly. I know this is a lot to take in, honey, and I want to help you. I glanced over and saw her give me a strange smile. Do you want to talk more, or do you want to go to bed? She asked. You know I'll do anything to make you feel better. I really want to. I was disgusted, offering me Zex to ease my pain. Pity Zex for her poor old husband. Probably her boyfriend's idea. Sloppy seconds for the clueless husband. How cliché. The thought made me angry. I ignored her offer and went upstairs to bed. I was furious with my wife and considered sleeping in the guest room, but I decided she was the one who should leave. Why should I give up my bed? I got undressed quickly and climbed into bed. A few minutes later, Amy came in. She saw I was already under the covers, so she went to our bathroom and changed into a Zexy nightgown she knew I liked. She turned off the light and slid into bed without a word, moving toward me. Knowing she was cheating, I had no intention of being physical engaged with her. I turned on my side, away from her, hoping she'd get the hint. But she moved closer, tried to spoon me, and reached for my chest to turn me toward her. I pushed her hand away. Want to fool around, honey? She whispered softly. Suddenly, a disgusting image came to mind. I pictured my slender 51-year-old wife in Cody's bed, lying on her back, getting vigorously screwed. I imagined her grabbing him and smiling as he took what was once mine. Without turning, I pulled her hand off me and said, Never again. But honey, I know you're upset. I just wanted to... I flipped over and glared at her. She pulled back, startled by the anger in my eyes. Even in the dark, I'm sure she could sense my resentment. Of course I'm upset, damn it, I spat. I just found out I've been a fool for months. If you need Zex so badly, go call Cody. I'm sure your young stud can handle your needs. Amy was shocked. I don't think she expected me to reject her like that. I stared at her for a moment, then turned back toward the wall. She didn't say a word and didn't bother me anymore. I had a hard time falling asleep, and I knew she did too. The next morning, I woke up before the alarm. I barely slept and was still bitter about the conversation. Amy was in bed, but she wasn't asleep. I took a quick shower, and when I came out, she had already left the room. She had to be at school an hour earlier than I did. I've always been an early riser, even though I didn't need to get up early. I used to get up before her and sometimes make breakfast. Not anymore. Not after finding out she was screwing that idiot. I got dressed and cleaned up faster than ever. When I left the room, I saw her downstairs in the kitchen, making breakfast for a change. Good morning, Cliff, she called out sweetly. I've made bacon and eggs for you, and there's toast, too. Want some coffee, dear? I ignored her greeting and her offers. To hell with her and her boyfriend. Without even glancing her way, I walked straight out of the house. Cliff, wait, please, I heard her shout as I slammed the door, got in my car, and sped down the street. At work, I tried to focus, but I couldn't get her and that young idiot out of my head. I couldn't concentrate all day. Amy called me several times. I didn't answer, letting her messages go to voicemail, and deleted them without listening. She sent me some cute texts, which I skimmed before deleting them too. With all the calls and texts, I couldn't stop thinking about her. I made several careless mistakes while reviewing work and decided to take the afternoon off. I called a lawyer for a consultation. He was an older guy and saw me right away. What Amy had told me about divorce seemed to be true. I'd be screwed emotionally and financially. She'd walk away well off with a young stud while I'd be left financially strapped, supporting her. Since I never cheated, I didn't have anyone to ease the heartache. I'd likely end up broke and alone in a small one-bedroom apartment, Not a pleasant future. If I stayed with her, it wasn't much better. Sure, I'd still get Zex. She emphasized that. But it would be sloppy seconds and pity Zex at best. It was clear this younger guy was satisfying her in ways I couldn't. At 47, there's no way I could compete in bed with a good-looking, athletic 30-year-old or however old he is. And if I stayed and tolerated her affair, the courts would view it as me accepting her cheating. I wouldn't even be able to claim infidelity in a divorce. Worse yet, trying to have my own affair to compete with her would be a losing battle. Plenty of guys were eager to be with her, even younger ones. Cody was proof of that. At 51, Amy still looked good, with short dark hair, a trim body, and a friendly personality. I was an average-looking older guy with a receding hairline and carrying a bit of extra weight. Sure, I had a good job, and I wasn't bad-looking for my age, but how many women were interested in a middle-aged married guy? Probably not many. The contrast in our dating prospects was depressing. She was still attractive, and I was not. After a frustrating day, I went to a bar for dinner. I stayed as late as possible, but I'd never been into the bar scene, and being there alone was boring. I wanted to be at home with my wife, drinking a beer and relaxing by the TV, not drowning my sorrows at a bar with other lonely guys. When I finally got home, Amy was already in bed. It wasn't even late, but I guess she gave up on waiting for me. Not that I cared. I woke up early after another rough night of sleep. I left the house at dawn and went to Denny's for breakfast. I spent some time driving around and window shopping, just wasting time. When I finally went back home, I wondered if my cheating wife was there or off with that young idiot. Turned out she was home. She must have heard my car pull up because she opened the door and smiled when I got there. When she tried to kiss me, I turned my head and her lips landed on my cheek. She looked surprised when I pulled away and walked past her. I went to the den to avoid her for a while. Later, when I came out, I saw her in the kitchen. I grabbed a beer and headed to the living room to watch TV. A few minutes later, Amy joined me with a glass of wine. "Mind if I sit with you?" she asked, sounding pleasant. I noticed she had changed into a tight tank top that showed off her arms and shoulders and was wearing skimpy shorts. I could smell her spicy perfume. "Suit yourself." I was sitting on the sofa, so I scooted over to give her space. She deliberately sat right next to me. During the show, she became more affectionate. I could tell the wine was making her a bit tipsy, maybe even a little aroused, but she wasn't drunk. As she moved closer to my neck, I chose that moment to say, "I need to use the bathroom, Amy." I gently pushed her away, got up, and left the room. As I walked off, I saw her give me a strange look because I almost never turned down her advances. After finishing in the bathroom, I didn't go back to the living room. Instead, I went into the kitchen. "You coming back?" she called. "This show's getting good." "Not right now." I purposely stayed in the kitchen for a while. When I figured enough time had passed, I grabbed another beer and headed straight to the den, shutting the door behind me. As expected, Amy opened the door a few minutes later. "What are you up to?" she asked with a smile. "Just catching up on some work." "You don't want to watch the show?" "Better not." "Oh, okay." She lingered there while I focused on my computer. I didn't look at her, but I could sense her frustration. She was clearly puzzled. After such a nice dinner, she probably hoped things would start to improve between us. A minute later, I felt her hands on my shoulders. "What are you looking at now?" she asked, glancing at the computer screen and pretending to show interest. I had some paperwork open from an account I was working on, a complex financial spreadsheet she wouldn't understand. "I got busy on Friday and didn't finish this," I explained. "I figured you wouldn't mind if I missed the show." "Oh, of course not." I shivered when she began massaging my neck. She knew I liked having my head and neck rubbed, and she made the massage as suggestive as possible. I could smell the booze on her breath when she leaned down and kissed my head affectionately. I just ignored her. It took Amy another 10 minutes to realize I wasn't interested in her attempts to get my attention. Finally, she gave up and headed back to the living room. "Could you shut the door, please?" I called after her. "Okay," she responded, pulling the door closed behind her. I sighed in relief. Despite everything, Amy still had a way of turning me on, even after all these years. She knew exactly what to do to get a reaction from me, and it was working. But I was determined not to give in to her charms. I had no intention of sharing her attention with another man. It took me 3 hours to finish my work. When I finally went upstairs to bed, I found her already asleep, wearing a revealing nightgown with matching underwear. I figured she had planned to seduce me, but the wine must have made her too tired, and she dozed off. Sunday morning, I got up before Amy and avoided her all day, just like I had the day before. On Monday, her car wouldn't start, so I had to drive her to school. She asked if I could pick her up afterward. Throughout the day, I got several calls from her school. I figured she wanted to tell me she'd arranged a ride home, probably with her boyfriend. I ignored the calls. Determined to avoid that scenario, I left work early and arrived at her school before her last class ended. I waited as the students trickled out of the room. When I walked into the classroom, Amy looked surprised and not particularly happy. "Hey, honey, ready to go home?" I asked, trying to sound cheerful. She gave me a sharp look. "I've been calling you all day, Cliff. Why didn't you answer?" "Sorry, I was busy," I replied nonchalantly. "I wanted to tell you I already arranged a ride home." "Oh, really? Well, no matter. I'm here now, so let's go," I said, brushing off her irritation. At that moment, a tall, athletic guy with dark hair walked into the room, moving confidently toward my wife like he expected her to greet him. I recognized him immediately. Her boyfriend, Cody. I'd seen him before, but hadn't paid much attention at the time. Now, up close, he looked even younger than I remembered, more like a college frat boy than a teacher. He was wearing sneakers, shorts, and a t-shirt that showed off his muscular arms and legs. He was an a-hole, but I could see why Amy was attracted to him. Amy's eyes widened when she saw him, and Cody looked confused. "Oh, Cody, she stammered. "I was just telling Cliff that she already has a ride home," I said, finishing her sentence. I kept my cool since I expected Cody to show up. He seemed surprised to see me. When he recognized me, he smiled smugly and glanced between Amy and me. "Oh, hi," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Cody Bakerfield." I ignored it and replied coolly, "Yeah, I know who you are." Trying to ease the tension, Amy said nervously, "Cody, this is Cliff, my husband. You've met him before." The young man's confused expression softened as he remembered me. "Oh, right, Cliff Wilson. I remember. Nice to see you again." "I'm sure it is," I replied coldly. "We met at Parents' Night a few months back. Amy speaks highly of you." "Not highly enough, I guess," I added, throwing a wary glance at Amy, who looked like she was holding her breath. "Amy, let's go," I said, wrinkling my nose as if something smelled bad. Amy began gathering her things as Cody turned to me. "Excuse me for a minute, Mr. Wilson. Can I call you Cliff?" I scowled and ignored his question. "What do you want?" "Just a minute of your time, Cliff. I know there's some tension between us, and I get that, but it doesn't have to be this way. Amy has told you about our friendship." So I just want you to know I don't have any hard feelings toward you. I respect the strong, loving relationship you have with your wife. Is that why you're screwing her?" I asked. Across the room, I heard Amy gasp in shock. Cody nodded sympathetically. "Yes, it's true. Amy and I are close friends, and we've expressed that friendship closely. But that doesn't mean we don't respect you or your role in her life. Neither of us wants to damage your marriage or your family. We can only be friends and nothing more. She's always said she loves you and only you." I thought, this guy's a smooth-talking idiot. Cody kept smiling as he continued. "I hope you don't resent my friendship with Amy. She's had a positive influence on everyone around her, including me. Once things escalated between us, we both realized we should have come to you before anything happened. That was entirely my fault. She behaved properly, and I took things further than I should have." "So you admit you seduced her?" I asked bitterly. "In a way, yes. She's an amazing woman, and I got a little infatuated. Because of my lack of self-control, I acted unprofessionally. But believe me, I never intended to hurt you. In fact, I appreciate you letting her work here so she can continue being a role model for the students. Her friendship has meant a lot to me, and I'll always value it." What a load of crap. I couldn't even respond. I glanced from this idiot to my wife, who was watching him with rapt attention. Her eyes sparkled like she was impressed with his respectful attitude. "So, if I asked you to stop sleeping with her, what would you say?" He shrugged. "I understand your concerns. I'd probably feel the same in your position. But as for ending our friendship, I'd leave that decision to her. Amy is a smart, passionate woman. If she doesn't want to see me anymore, I'll respect that. But if she does, I don't know how I could say no to her." I couldn't bring myself to hate this guy, despite how much I wanted to. I appreciated his honesty, but despised him all the same. As reasonable as he sounded, the bottom line was that unless I physically forced him out of the picture, he'd continue sleeping with my wife, whether I liked it or not. I looked away and saw Amy and Cody exchanging glances. I hated the adoring look on her face. She was old enough to be his mother, but around him, she acted like a teenage girl with a crush. Whatever feelings she once had for me were now overshadowed by her obsession with her young, attractive boyfriend. His slick words left me deflated. Sure, I could have punched him, maybe even landed a couple of good hits, but he was in great shape and would probably wipe the floor with me. That would have made me feel even more foolish than I already did. Feeling like a complete fool, I pushed past him and walked out the door. As I left, I heard Amy and Cody exchange a few hushed words. She quickly followed after me. "Cliff, wait up, honey," she called as her heels clicked on the hard floor. I hurried toward my car, not wanting to be anywhere near her. The whole conversation had left me feeling weak and humiliated. It was clear how much Amy cared for him. There was no way I could compete with a young, charming guy like Cody. I hated him for seducing my naive wife, but I was even more upset with her. Amy was quiet during the drive home. She said a few kind things, but for the most part she just stared out the window, probably thinking about the scene that had just unfolded. I wasn't sure what she thought of Cody now, likely even more impressed. I knew my standing had taken a big hit. I came off as weak, lost, and hesitant, while Cody confidently spouted nonsense about his respect for me and admiration for my wife. What a joke. When we got home, I trudged upstairs to my bedroom, feeling more like 67 than 47. Amy could see I was depressed and tried to cheer me up, but it was pointless. She even suggested giving me a back rub and maybe more to help me sleep. I wasn't remotely interested in her touch. She gave me a sad smile as she changed into her nightgown and lay beside me in bed. The next night, I moved my clothes into the guest room. Amy was clearly disappointed. She argued with me to stay, telling me, "You're my husband and you belong by my side." She even promised me anything I wanted sexually if I stayed with her at night. I ignored her, and soon I was sleeping in the small guest bed. Amy went to bed that night in tears. The rest of the week passed in a blur. We went through the motions, getting up, going to work, eating dinner, and heading to bed separately. We didn't talk about the affair, and neither of us made plans for the weekend. Friday and Saturday nights were spent sitting silently in front of the TV, followed by sleeping in different rooms. I never knew if she was still seeing Cody. She didn't tell me, but I suspected she was. Even if I came home on time, she had plenty of opportunities to meet him after school. He didn't live far from the school, so it was easy for them to spend time together. Amy did her best to hide the affair, but I wasn't an idiot. After seeing the way she looked at him in the classroom, I was sure Cody was getting more from her than I ever did. Amy knew I was depressed. She stayed friendly, often asking if I needed help with anything. In the evenings, she sometimes wore revealing outfits and gave me suggestive looks, hoping I'd forgive her and restart our relationship. We kept our conversations light and casual, but the tension between us was undeniable. A couple of days after our confrontation, I came home feeling exhausted. Amy's car was in the driveway, but there was another one I didn't recognize. Inside, I found Amy and a woman lounging on the back deck in their swimsuits, sipping wine. Amy got up to meet me. "Hey, Cliff," she said cheerfully. She tried to kiss me, but I turned my cheek, which she seemed to expect by now. "Tough day?" she asked sweetly. "Not really," I replied, not wanting to talk. "Come out back and meet my friend Susan," she said, and I reluctantly agreed. Amy introduced us. Susan was short, with blonde hair, a curvy figure, and seemed friendly enough. We all chatted for a while, then ordered takeout and ate in the kitchen. The women drank wine, getting giggly as the night went on. When I said I was heading to bed, Susan teased, "Already? It's not even 11 o'clock. Amy laughed. "He gets tired early now." They both laughed, but I was annoyed. That night, I had an intense dream, but when I woke up, I was shocked. The sensation hadn't stopped. I looked down to see Susan giving me non-class execs. I bolted upright, pushing her away. Amy was lying next to me, smiling. "What the hell is going on?" I shouted. "We're just trying to make you feel good," Amy said softly. Susan added, "Come back. Let me finish. You'll love it." "Please, Cliff," Amy whispered. "I want you to be happy." "Screw you." I was furious. They had taken advantage of me while I was asleep. I stormed to the kitchen, splashed water on my face, and when I turned around, they were both standing in the doorway, now in robes. "What were you thinking?" I demanded. Amy spoke first. "We just wanted to help you." "Yes," Susan added. "Amy told me about your situation. I thought I could help." "I don't need any help," I shouted. "Everything was fine until Amy started cheating on me. She said nothing would change, but everything has." "I'm sick of it," Susan quietly replied. "I know, and I don't think she should have done that, but it's her choice." "Yeah, look where that got us," I snapped. I know she doesn't want to hurt you, Susan said. Easy for you to say. How do you think I feel, knowing my wife isn't satisfied with me? That she needs some younger guy to make her happy? All right, enough, Amy snapped. I get it. We made a mistake. No need to insult us. So now I'm the crazy one? I shot back. I'm out of here. I thought about leaving for a hotel, but decided not to. I wasn't going to let Amy chase me out of my own house. Instead, I locked myself in the guest room, blocking the door with a dresser. If they tried to sneak in again, I'd be ready. The next day, I realized I couldn't take it anymore. During lunch, I went to my lawyer and told him to proceed with the divorce. After explaining how my wife and her friend tried to ambush me while I slept, he suggested we file a restraining order to get her out of the house and keep her away from me. I agreed. 2 days later, Amy was served at school. During lunch, the process server walked right into the teacher's break room and handed her the papers in front of her coworkers. Then he served Cody, that idiot, for alienation of affection. After that, he went to the principal's office and served him for allowing Amy and Cody's affair during school hours on school property. We didn't have proof of that last charge, but we planned to gather witnesses about the exercise class and hoped Amy had left out some details. I was sure some teachers suspected their affair. Time would tell. Either way, it was clear they were cheating, and I was the one suffering for it. I got a call at work right after lunch. Damn you, Cliff, Amy screamed. You fool! I told you what would happen if we divorced. It can't be worse than living with a cheater and a sleaze. I'm done with you and your loser boyfriend. You both can go to hell. I get why you're mad at me, she said. You've made that clear many times. But did you really have to drag Cody into this? He's a good guy. Having this on his record will hurt his career. Tough. He should have thought of that before sleeping with a coworker. He's as much of a dirtbag as you are and deserves whatever comes his way. And don't even think about bringing your friends to the house anymore. You're not welcome either. The restraining order makes that clear, and I've changed the locks. No more bringing your girlfriends over to ambush me. You're crazy! It wasn't like that at all, she yelled. Most men would have loved the chance to have 2 women in bed, but not you. I guess 2 sexually eager women are too much for a wimp like you. Susan was right. You're screwed up. Speaking of Susan, is she married? If she is, I'd love to let her husband know what kind of person he's tied to, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Screw you, she snapped. Not anymore, I replied with a laugh. By the way, your clothes are on the driveway. You might want to grab them before it starts raining. If you need anything else, talk to my lawyer. You better not, she began, but I cut her off by hanging up. That night, Amy came by to pick up her clothes. I watched from the window as she arrived with her friend Heidi. She shouted a few curses and flipped me off. I just laughed. With her gone, I felt a huge sense of relief. Her cheating was no longer my problem. The kids called me a few times. Martha was angry with me. She knew about her mother's affair and didn't approve, but asked if I could ever forgive her. I simply said, "No, your mother isn't worth it." Robbie was more understanding. He realized his mom had messed up and didn't blame me for kicking her out, which I appreciated. I reassured both of them that I still loved them and would always be there for them. Thankfully, we still have a good relationship. The lawsuit against the school board didn't go anywhere. Apparently, Amy had been truthful. She never had sex on school property. She and Cody met at his apartment or elsewhere, but never at the school. We couldn't find anyone who even knew they were having an affair, so they'd kept it well hidden. However, the lack of proof didn't save Cody's job. He was let go with a reprimand and soon moved out of the area to avoid the gossip. Amy was also fired. She was bitter and blamed me, shouting during a few phone calls that her work problems were all my fault. She applied to another school, but they found out about the affair and wouldn't hire her. Martha later told me Amy was working as a receptionist at a real estate office in the next town. The divorce took a while to finalize. We had to sell the house because neither of us could afford it alone. I might have been able to, but it was too big for just me anyway. Amy only took a few things when she moved out. I got a 2-bedroom apartment near work and put most of the furniture in storage. Why did I wait so long to divorce her, you might wonder? Well, during those months living together, I quietly drained our joint accounts. Amy never noticed since she was too wrapped up in her affair. After the divorce, I didn't date much. I was cautious around women, and with the kids' school expenses and Amy's alimony, money was tight. I hadn't hidden much from Amy's lawyer, but after the split, I lived frugally, and my finances began to improve. I threw myself into work and am now nearing a promotion. After everything with my wife, I'm a bit hesitant about long-term relationships. I wasn't in a rush to get back into dating. I've met a few nice women through concerned friends. I'm not sure how things will go, but even without a steady relationship, I enjoy meeting women and hope to eventually find companionship with someone who's right for me. One Friday night, I was out with an attractive coworker I had met named Stacy. She's in her late 30s, divorced for a few years, sweet, fun, and good-looking. It was our third date, and we were having dinner across town at a nice restaurant. While enjoying our coffee and dessert, I noticed an older woman at a nearby table. She was painfully thin, with short blonde hair, dining with a much older, frail man who looked to be in his 70s, with only a little gray hair left. At first I didn't recognize her, but after a second glance I realized it was my ex-wife, Amy. I mentioned to Stacy that my ex was sitting nearby. Stacy looked over and seemed shocked. "That's your ex-wife?" she asked, amused. "She looks more like your mother than your wife." I explained that she was a few years older than me, 4 to be exact, and she must have had a rough time lately. After we split, I was concerned about how thin she had become, almost too skinny. "Wow," Stacy laughed. "She looks old enough to be your mother, and he looks like her dad. I can't believe she was your wife." I acted unfazed, but inside I was worried about Amy. She wore a sleeveless dress, and I could see her arms were just skin hanging from bones. The wrinkles on her face had deepened a lot since we were together. I didn't tell Stacy, but Amy looked unhealthy. I hoped she was taking care of herself. We didn't talk about her anymore. We finished our meal and were getting ready to leave. Stacy went to use the bathroom, and I waited by the entrance when I felt a tap on my shoulder. "Hello, Cliff," said a familiar voice. "Hi, Amy," I replied. I turned to see her, and I barely recognized her. Amy had aged so much. I wanted to say something polite, like she looked well, but I couldn't bring myself to lie. Instead, I simply said, "It's nice to see you. How are you?" "Oh, not too bad," she replied. Her once sparkling blue eyes had lost their shine, and her face appeared thinner, with a sickly pallor in her cheeks that worried me. "I talk to Martha and Robbie from time to time," I said, trying to fill the silence. "They're doing well in school." "I'm glad to hear that," she responded quietly. "Yes, Martha visits occasionally, but Robbie not as much," I added. We stood there for a moment staring at each other, unsure what to say next. "Well, Amy, I don't want to keep you from your date," I said, trying to move things along. "He's not my date." "Not really," she said vaguely, avoiding my eyes. "Oh, are you still with Cody?" I asked, attempting to sound casual. A shadow crossed her dulled blue eyes, and she looked down for a moment before answering in a raspy voice. "No, Cody and I aren't together anymore. I haven't seen him since a few months after our divorce." She raised her eyes to mine and added softly, "But that's okay. I don't want to see him anyway." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, unsure of how to respond. "Yeah," she whispered, as an awkward silence hung between us. I was about to end the conversation before Stacy returned when Amy spoke again. "Well, it was nice seeing you, Amy," I said, trying to make my exit. "Yes, it was," she agreed, holding my gaze. Then, unexpectedly, she grasped my arm with her frail fingers, her grip surprisingly firm. "You know, Cliff, I'm really sorry about how things turned out between us. You were right about everything," she said, her voice filled with regret. "I was?" I asked, taken aback. "Yeah, Cody wasn't worth it. I see that now," she admitted, her eyes glistening with tears. "Are you married?" she asked, her voice softening. "I saw your date. She's really pretty." "No, I'm not married. Once bitten, twice shy, you know?" I joked, though she didn't laugh. She just looked at me with sad eyes. "Yeah, I get it, honey. You were always the one for me. I knew it back then, but I was too stupid to appreciate it." "Oh, well, I don't know what to say," I replied, feeling increasingly awkward. "Listen, Cliff, if you ever want to talk," she said, slipping a small piece of paper into my hand. Her wrinkled face watched me closely for my reaction. I didn't reject it, and for a brief moment her eyes sparkled like they used to, back when I loved her. "I'd really like to hear from you, Cliff. I know we can never be together again, and I know I ruined that. But I hope you're happy now. I know you weren't happy with me. Your date is beautiful. I hope she realizes how lucky she is to have you." Without waiting for a response, Amy turned and shuffled back to her table. She said something to the older man with her, who glanced at me curiously. Just then, Stacy returned from the restroom. "Ready to go, Cliff?" she asked with a smile. "I sure am," I replied. We left the restaurant arm in arm, and as we passed the trash can by the door, I tossed the scrap of paper Amy had given me into it. That was the last time I saw her. Later, I heard from the kids that she was living with an older man a few towns away, probably the same man I saw at the restaurant. They said her health wasn't good. She had developed diabetes. Fortunately, the man had enough money to take care of her. As for Stacy and me, we never got married. But I'm still doing well, working as an accountant. I see my kids as often as I can, but I don't see their mother. I guess part of me still feels something for Amy, but after everything she put me through, I could never live with her again. And I'm okay with that. Last year on Father's Day began like any other. I'd be up early, waiting for my wife and teenage daughters to join me. On Mother's Day, I'd treat my wife to mimosas for breakfast, a fancy cheese plate for lunch, and her favorite steak dinner. As the girls grew older, I handled the pampering solo. On Father's Day, my wife usually cooked me a special breakfast, though last year was different. I waited until she woke to eat, starving by then. When she finally did, she greeted me with a kiss and got to work on a family breakfast. We later enjoyed lunch at a quirky cafe with Doctor Who-themed sandwiches. My wife, a calendar devotee, orchestrates our life with precision, managing holidays and kids' activities with ease. All events, from holidays to birthdays, are marked on our calendar, rarely overlooked except by me. When my wife noticed my birthday coincided with Father's Day, I wasn't surprised. She joked about double gifts, promising something special. I kissed her cheek, hoping for more than the usual. She usually teased with head employments during foreplay, but on my birthday and Father's Day, they were special treats, given without expectation of return. I wasn't clueless. I was excited, thinking I might get a rare treat on my upcoming birthday. But as the weeks passed, things felt off. My wife, usually steady, started acting strange, working late, dressing up more for her job at the bakery, even wearing makeup. Doubts crept in when she went out alone on a Friday, which was unusual for us. We were a tight-knit couple, preferring each other's company. Our marriage felt solid. We weren't big on going out. Our ideal night was lounging at home, so seeing her dolled up that Friday was unexpected. She wore a new skirt, tan stockings, and heels, looking like she'd been to the salon. I whistled, thinking we had plans, but she explained she was going out with coworkers. Shocked, I asked why she hadn't mentioned it earlier. She seemed uneasy, but apologized, claiming she'd just been asked. I eyed her outfit, questioning how she managed all that in an hour at work. I grew increasingly frustrated, sensing her dishonesty, yet unable to confront her. Her infidelity seemed unfathomable. She embodied the typical suburban wife and mother. Our bed life remained vibrant, adding to my confusion. When she brushed off my suspicions, claiming she worked half a day and wanted to look nice, I was left speechless as she hurried out the door. She returned near midnight, her hair hastily tied up, dispelling any notion of a salon visit. Ignoring me, she headed straight for the shower, leaving me bewildered. Something was amiss in our seemingly perfect life, and I couldn't shake the feeling of impending trouble, especially considering my line of work in retail. On Saturday morning, as I prepared for work, my wife didn't wake to bid me farewell as she usually did. I found it surprising. At the store, I encountered Missy, the morning barista, waiting at the entrance. With her striking blue eyes and red hair, she caught my attention, despite my contented marriage. Redheads had always intrigued me. "Hey, Bill," she called out as I approached the entrance, still locked, as it was half an hour before opening. Missy had mentioned feeling uncomfortable with the night crew. "Good morning, Missy," I greeted, unlocking the doors. "What's up, Bill? You look down," she observed. "Just a lot on my mind today," I admitted. She gave me a curious look, but didn't pry. "Give me a sec. I'll get you some of our best coffee," she offered. Forced to smile, I replied, "Sounds good. I'll join you soon." I secured the doors while she hastened to ready the cafe for the busy morning ahead. Knowing how bustling our little cafe became once the store opened, I made my rounds on the floor, checking in on the department crews. While my competent department managers made these checks unnecessary, I valued the chance to greet and chat with my team. Maintaining positive relationships with them mattered to me, and I believe they appreciated the effort. My final stop was at the coffee shop, where Missy had my usual large black coffee ready and waiting. "Here's your cup of Megamart's finest brew," Missy said, handing it over. "Thanks, Missy," I replied, pushing $2 across the counter. "No need for payment today, boss," she insisted. "Can't take any chances, Missy. I cover all my expenses here. Last thing I need is someone causing trouble with corporate," I explained. She gasped. "Bill, I'd never do that." "Not saying you would, Missy, but I can't risk it, even for a $2 coffee. You'd be surprised what I have to deal with. Denying someone a day off or cutting overtime, it's just not worth it," I explained. "All right, boss, understood." She nodded. I waved farewell and took a sip from my mug, aware that some employees likely receive free coffee occasionally, though it was impossible to track. And it wasn't worth the hassle of monitoring video footage just to ensure everyone paid. As the company's leader, I faced risks, dealing with employee frustrations over trivial matters like parking regulations, prompting unnecessary HR calls. The day passed quietly, with the highlight being an old lady stealing cat and bird food. It provided the distraction I needed, keeping me occupied without dwelling on my marital issues. Upon returning home, I found my wife and daughters heading out to a concert with other families. While it had been planned and noted on the calendar, I had forgotten. I hoped to speak with Katie later, eager to resolve our recent tensions. Not knowing what had transpired the previous night nagged at me, leaving me with little else to dwell on. Tonight, I seized the chance to snoop around. I checked her email, expecting it to be fruitless, but surprisingly, no one else had sent messages. Since she had a cell phone, I couldn't check her texts or call log. Checking her clothes for clues was also futile, as she'd already done her Saturday laundry. Frustrated, I achieved nothing and went to bed after the movie feeling just as unsettled. On my birthday and Father's Day, I began my day as usual, toast, coffee, and enjoying the morning on the terrace. It was beautiful, with birds chirping, and I pondered what the day held in store. Around 9, I returned inside to refill my coffee and found my wife and daughters up and packing lunch. Surprised by their early activity, I questioned their plans. Jill announced a beach trip, catching me off guard. As they departed, I realized they remembered my birthday, unlike how I often had to remind them of important dates. Perplexed by Katie's oversight, I received a call from my mom, hoping it was them coming back, but it wasn't. "Hey, Billy, happy birthday and Father's Day," Mom greeted. "Thanks, Mom. Kathy's got some big plans for you guys today," I replied. "Nope, she took the girls to the beach just a bit ago," she informed me. "Really? That's not like her. I'd have thought she'd whip up a tasty breakfast and make today special for you," I commented. "Yeah. Honestly, I'm not sure what's up lately. She's been acting strange for weeks now," Mom shared. "Well, don't sweat it. She probably has something special lined up for later. I've got to head to church." "Love you, Billy," Mom assured me. "Love you, Mom." Mom's eternal optimism and her close relationship with Kathy always warmed my heart, especially since Dad passed away a few years ago. I stood there, pondering the state of my marriage, when the phone rang once more. It was my assistant, Anne. "Bill, there was an incident at the coffee shop this morning." "What happened? Was Missy involved?" "Unfortunately, yes. She was on the stairs when a customer shoved her. She lost her balance and took a fall." "Oh my goodness. Is she all right?" "They've taken her to St. Alex's Hospital for x-rays. It looks like she might have a broken arm or something." "Poor girl. Do you need me to cover her shift?" "No, everything's sorted. I just wanted to give you a heads up for tomorrow. I apologize for reaching out on Father's Day." "Don't worry about it, Anne. Thanks for letting me know." I hoped Missy was all right, but assuming they wouldn't return, I went to IHOP for breakfast. The bustling atmosphere, filled with happy families celebrating fathers, overwhelmed me, and I left to avoid breaking down. Opting for McDonald's, I enjoyed a satisfying breakfast with coffee and orange juice. Sitting in the park, I reminisced about boating trips with my daughters when they were young, realizing they had grown distant as they neared college. Their outings with their mother became more frequent, perhaps for the best. I acknowledged there would likely be no dinner together as the day wore on, so I grabbed a Reuben at the doctor-themed cafe. A Facebook post garnered the usual Father's Day wishes, but my mother-in-law's comment about the beach trip surprised me, as my wife had been posting beach photos. Feeling down, I sought solace in a sports bar, but soon retreated to a cigar lounge, indulging in a pricey Opus X. Settling in to watch the game, I was invited to join a group playing cards. "I'm Bill," I introduced myself to the older gentleman. "I'm Lance, and this is my brother Jerry. Pleasure to meet you both." They finished their handshake and included me in their little 5-card game. "Grab yourself a drink, Bill. Lance offered, placing the cooler on the floor. I expressed gratitude and opted for a Miller Lite. No kids, or did the ex take them with a new guy? Jerry quipped with a smirk. I frowned and replied, My wife and the girls are at the beach. Seems like they've lost track of the day. Tough break, Lance chimed in. I hardly see my boys. They're both in the service. Jerry nodded, adding, My daughter's out in California. My grandson Charlie just turned 2. I'm heading there next week. That sounds wonderful, I said. As my daughters hit 17 and 18, I began longing for the days of them being little. They nodded in agreement. Eventually, the conversation circled back to my wife. Do you think she genuinely forgot, or is she avoiding you? Jerry asked, echoing my own thoughts. Recounting the recent weeks and Friday's issues, they shook their heads in disbelief. She's cheating on you, Lance asserted, with Jerry nodding in agreement. I can't believe it, I muttered, grappling with the revelation, though deep down I knew it made sense. Listen, Bill, Lance began, recounting his own experience. I've been down this road. The sudden changes in behavior. The late nights out dressed provocatively. The lack of respect. Been there, buddy. Lance shared how he regretted his initial reaction of divorcing his unfaithful wife, highlighting the financial and emotional toll it took. Bill, trust me, he continued, urging me to consider forgiveness if I truly loved her. It'll be better for you in the long run. Guys in their 40s don't often get second chances at love. Thank you, Lance. You've given me a lot to think about. I might have said it aloud, but deep down, I thought he was crazy. Forgiving her for cheating and staying married seemed impossible. I shook both men's hands, bid them farewell, and left. As I scrolled through Facebook on the couch, dinner time approached. Seeing my daughters and wife's posts filled with pictures of their joyful day saddened me further. Enough of this, I thought. It was time to face reality. My wife had forgotten my birthday and Father's Day. What did it matter? What counted was my certainty that she had cheated, especially after Friday night's strange behavior. Her goal seemed to be rubbing it in my face, and now she had succeeded. Determined to move forward, I prepared for the evening. I decided to treat myself to dinner at my favorite restaurant, even if it meant a long wait. After a shower and donning my sport coat and slacks, I headed out for steak. Sitting at the bar, awaiting a table, an older man took the seat beside me. Observing my solitary champagne bottle, he frowned but refrained from comment, opting for a martini. As the bartender filled my glass, he couldn't resist asking if I was celebrating alone or taking someone else's place. I assured him it was just me. He nodded and took a sip, revealing he was awaiting his family, 3 generations strong despite his daughter breaking her arm earlier. He chuckled, noting the unexpected nature of grown children breaking bones. I nodded in agreement. Looks like I'll be cooking solo for a while. My wife needs to focus on taking care of Missy and Mia and leave me be. Suddenly, a little girl called out, Grandpa, and dashed across the crowded bar, showering the man with affectionate hugs and kisses. Then I heard my name. Missy and her mother approached me. The resemblance between them was striking. Hey, Missy, how's your arm? I inquired. Not bad. The painkillers are doing their job. But it was rough when they said it, she replied. Missy introduced me to her parents, Jack and Mary, and their adorable daughter, Mia. Where's your wife, Bill? Mary asked. I'm not sure. She took the girls to the beach this morning, and I haven't heard from them all day. On Father's Day, and it's your birthday too? Mary exclaimed. That's terrible. What's going on with her? Not wanting to delve into it, I shrugged. Forget about her, you're joining us, Mary insisted. I grasped Jack's reference to his red rage. You don't want them to gang up on you, Bill, he chuckled, a testament to his experience dealing with familial conflicts. But it's your day, Jack. I don't want to intrude, I replied. Nonsense, he retorted. This is our day, Bill. Grandpa, remember? As their table's buzzer sounded, he tossed a $20 bill and left, insisting I meet him at our table. Sorry about that, Bill. My parents can be stubborn, Missy apologized. Don't worry, Missy. Eating alone would be worse, I assured her. Dinner conversation remained light, filled with anecdotes about our daughters. Mia giggled at stories of her mom's childhood antics. Later, my phone rang, but I ignored it, placing it on the table. Your wife? Mary inquired. Yes, it's complicated, I admitted. Maybe you can find a way to forgive her, Mary suggested, glancing at Jack. I signaled for the check, expressing gratitude for the meal and treating them. As I signed the check, I pondered the advice I'd received, despite lacking solid evidence of her infidelity. Ignoring the persistent ringing of my phone, I couldn't help but wonder what was wrong with people. As I pulled into the garage, my daughters greeted me with kisses and hugs, apologizing for forgetting Father's Day. "Girls, it's okay. I don't expect you to remember my birthday," I reassured them. Suddenly, Jill exclaimed, "Wait, it's your birthday today." She rushed inside, yelling at my wife. "Daddy, we didn't know. We're so sorry. You must hate us," Jill lamented. "No, sweetheart, I love you more than anything. We decided last night to go to the beach today, and we didn't realize it was your birthday." "It's okay, don't worry, I'm not upset with you," I comforted her. Though I didn't express my anger toward her mother, it was my issue, not my daughter's. Ignoring the chaos in the kitchen, I changed upstairs and returned to find my wife sobbing alone. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I shook my head and retreated to the deck with a beer and cigar. Enjoying the serene evening, my wife interrupted me. "Bill, What's his name?" I interjected, my anger rising. She didn't respond, and I realized I was headed for divorce. What a mistake marrying her had been after nearly 20 years. At this point, I began fearing the worst. How long had she been unfaithful? Was he her first? Did I even know him? Were these girls truly mine? It's astonishing the negative thoughts that invade your mind when you're mistreated. I decided to request a paternity test for the girls as part of the divorce, not only for my peace of mind, but also to embarrass Katie. I spent the night researching divorce laws online before falling asleep on the couch. How I spent my birthday. Waking at 5 a.m, I found Katie peacefully asleep in my bedroom, her undressed body curled around her pillow. Despite my restless night, she looked serene. Sadly, she was no longer mine, but I couldn't help admiring her beauty. After a quick shower, I left without waking her, only to be met by Jill in the hallway. "How bad is it, Dad?" she asked. "As bad as it can get," I sighed. "Can you forgive her? It's just one day's mistake," she pleaded. "Honey, it's more than forgetting my birthday or Father's Day." "She cheated on me," I explained. "No, Dad, she wouldn't do that. Something must have pushed her, but I won't accept it. Think about it. She's been acting strange for weeks. Friday night, after getting all done up, she went out dressed provocatively." "That wasn't for you," Jill reasoned. "She avoided me all weekend. Clearly, she felt guilty or resentful toward me and didn't want to be around me at all." "When has she ever taken you to the beach without me? It's always a family outing. What if it's not an affair? What if it was just a one-time thing? Can't you forgive her for once?" Jill pleaded. "I doubt that's the case, honey. But look at her actions this weekend. Has she shown love toward me?" I questioned. "Daddy, you didn't see her face when Grandma called to ask why she didn't wish Grandpa a happy Father's Day. She dropped the phone and yelled no so loudly we thought Grandpa was having a heart attack," Jill recounted. "He's fine, Dad. Mom sobbed on her knees until we helped her up and sat her on the couch. She kept repeating that she loves you. Honestly, Jenny wanted to call an ambulance for her. We calmed her down and convinced her to call you," Jill continued. "I don't know what to say, Jill. She doesn't love me. You can't cheat on your spouse and claim to love them. That's not love, it's selfishness. Love should be selfless. When she was with another man, she abandoned me," I concluded. She hugged me tightly, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I can't imagine it was just some random guy she met at a bar. There must have been flirting, or her accepting his advances. Pleasure touches, maybe even kissing and caressing, all leading up to her being with him. It's a betrayal to your spouse. To show carnal affection to someone else when you're in love, please don't divorce her. I have to head to work now. We'll talk more later," she said, walking into Jenny's room. I promised to discuss our conversation with Jenny. No more secrets in our family. I wondered how long we'd remain a family. Despite Kathy's likely busy schedule, I felt calm throughout the day. The only unusual thing was dealing with the paperwork related to Missy's accident. I ensured she'd be compensated for her vacation and helped her fill out the accident report, knowing she wasn't good with her left hand. She signed it, and I felt a pang of concern for her well-being. "How's home?" she asked. "Not good," I replied. She didn't deny the affair when I confronted her. "Damn, Bill," she said sympathetically. "I'm sorry," I murmured. "You probably don't want to hear my story, but I get it. My ex cheated on me when I was pregnant. I kicked him out before our daughter was born. My mom wasn't pleased. She basically called me disposable." "Wow." "I found it strange when your mom mentioned forgiving my wife last night." "She was looking right at your dad," she revealed. "Yeah, I noticed. I'm not sure who, but it makes me think one of them was cheating." "I'm sorry," she offered. "No need. If they're happy deceiving each other, let them. I'd rather not trust a liar," I stated firmly. Kathy wasn't home when I returned from work. She was probably with her lover, and I was furious. I drove to her grocery store, spotted her car, and was surprised to find her with a young man. She noticed me and seemed to yell no as I approached, but I left before she could say anything. If she was cheating, he could have her. I drove home, packed my bags, and decided to stay in a hotel until I found an apartment. Jenny and Jill begged me to stay, but I explained that I caught their mom almost cheating with a man in her car after work. "Dad, there must be a mistake," Jenny pleaded. "I saw what I saw. There's no innocent explanation for her being in the back parking lot with a man in her car," I insisted. "Please don't break up our family," Jenny sobbed. "Your mom did that, not me. I love you girls. I'll keep in touch every day," I reassured them before leaving them in tears and heading to the garage. As I drove out of the garage, Katie nearly hit me as she sped away. The following week was utter torment. I ignored all of my wife's calls, and she bombarded me with messages every hour, likely taking a week off work to do so. Despite pleas from my family and Kathy's sister, none would confirm her infidelity when I asked. Frustrated, I stopped taking their calls, insisting that my daughters avoid mentioning their mother. Eventually, I met with a lawyer and proposed splitting the house equally, even though I could have claimed a larger share due to my larger contributions. Surprisingly, I learned I didn't have to pay alimony since Kathy could support herself. The downside was lacking concrete proof of her affair, which could weaken my case in court. Nonetheless, I was willing to take my chances. My lawyer geared up for divorce proceedings, and life carried on. There'd be no forced mediation or lengthy legal battles. The split was fair, obvious to any judge, but nothing was smooth sailing. When served the papers, she rallied her family against me again. Supposedly, she only cheated once on that Friday before my birthday. Yet her relatives made me out to be the villain for not hearing her out. It was surreal. Even my daughters resisted until I fibbed about a court order for a DNA test. Kathy's letter arrived, admitting to a fling with a 21-year-old, which spared me the need to prove infidelity for the divorce. Finally, karma favored me. She resisted the divorce at first, but the judge approved it when he saw the terms I proposed and her admission of infidelity in the letter. I was to be divorced in 60 days, finding myself isolated for refusing to talk to her. I was labeled immature and a prick. Even my mother and daughters stopped talking to me. It hurt, but I stood by my principles. I called my daughters every day, leaving messages despite their silence. I refused to let them blame me for the lack of communication, making every effort to stay in touch. One change was having coffee with Missy on Sundays. We met at a local coffee shop, where she and Mia lived nearby. I confided in her about my struggles while Mia watched cartoons. "Your daughters will come around, Bill," she reassured. "Living with your wife. Who knows what she's put in their heads?" I hope so. I just missed them terribly. The following week, I returned to the same store at the usual time and was engrossed in reading when I heard a familiar voice say, "Hey, stranger." I smiled and welcomed them to join me again. "Are you stalking me, or is this your usual routine?" she joked. "No, I live nearby and I enjoy having coffee and reading on Sunday mornings. It gets a bit lonely at home," I explained. We chatted about the neighborhood until we parted ways. Meeting every Sunday wasn't planned, but it became a habit. I found her company enjoyable, and little Mia was a delight. On the day the divorce was finalized, I knocked on the front door of my former house. My wife answered, tears evident. Without a word, she invited me in. "Are the girls home?" I inquired. "They're at a school musical. I knew you'd come tonight," she admitted. "So you waited until it was too late to stop it, didn't you?" I smirked. "Yes," she admitted. "I knew you'd try to beg and plead, but I couldn't let that happen. You broke my heart, and there's no forgiveness for that." "It was one mistake, Bill. Why couldn't you forgive me?" she pleaded. "Did you love me when you were with that guy? Did you love me when you ignored me on my birthday?" I countered. "If that's your version of love, then it's beyond repair." "I never wanted this to happen," she sobbed. "And I never wanted a cheating wife," I retorted. "But here we are." She tried to speak, but I interrupted. "Katie, you not only broke my heart, but you turned my own mother and daughters against me. I'll never forgive you for that." "You acted irrationally," she countered. "If you don't make things right with my family, I'll expose your infidelity to every man you date. I don't need anyone else." Wrong answer. "Then I'll find other ways to hurt and embarrass you," she threatened. As I stood to leave, she grabbed my arm. "It's not my fault," she pleaded. "Oh, really? Did I cheat on you?" I shot back. "You've normalized cheating to our daughters. They'll think it's okay because you've convinced them it was a one-time mistake." Well, I won't go down because of some idiot who made you feel hot. I freed my hand from hers. Rot in hell for ending our marriage over a fling, I spat, leaving her in tears, unaffected by her distress. A few weeks later, Missy knocked on my office door. Got a second, Bill? Sure, come on in, I replied, though I frowned, anticipating bad news. Bill, does the company have rules about dating coworkers? I disliked this question, hoping to ask her out myself, but it seemed I was too late. No, we have strict intimidation policies. It protects against potential issues arising from workplace relationships, I explained. Good, that's what I hoped for, she said, leaving her contact details on my desk. My address and phone number. Let's have dinner tomorrow night. Mia will join us. I smiled and agreed, feeling grateful for the chance at happiness. Hey, it's Dad. Hope you and your sister are doing well. Nothing new here except a coworker asked me out. Anyway, love you and miss you. Call soon. Bye. I knew this message might stir up trouble, but I didn't mind. I needed to move forward, and I was glad Missy had taken the lead. She was not only beautiful, but also had a wonderful character. Her daughter was delightful, and I had already met her parents. I felt like things were finally looking up. Just 15 minutes later, Katie texted me, calling me a fool for already dating. I chuckled at her delusion. I had no intention of mourning the end of my marriage to a cheating wife. At 41, I felt young enough to find love again, even consider having more kids. Missy, in her 30s, might share that desire. It was early to think about such things, but as a single mom, it might be a priority for her. As for me, I hadn't been carnal in months. The next evening after work, I showered, shaved, and dressed casually. Glancing in the mirror, I was satisfied with what I saw. I was in good shape, no extra weight, and my brown hair showed no signs of gray. With a well-paying job and savings, I considered myself a catch, especially for someone like Missy. Yet I realized I had no clue how to navigate the dating scene. Marriage provided comfort and familiarity, from holding hands to intimacy. Dating was uncharted territory. Oh my God. I had to relearn everything about lovemaking. With my ex-wife, I knew exactly what pleased her. Now I just hope the next woman enjoys the same things, or at least has a good rapport with her body. I worried I rushed back into dating too soon. Arriving at her house with wine, flowers, and a stuffed animal for Mia, I aimed to win her favor. When Missy opened the door, I was taken aback. Her curly red hair cascaded around her shoulders, complemented by just the right amount of makeup. She wore a breezy sundress, showcasing her beautiful legs. Barefoot, her hot pink toenails matched her fingernails. Do I pass the test? She teased. God, yes, I blurted before I could retract my words. She chuckled, accepting the gifts and ushering me in. With Mia engrossed in TV, I knelt beside her, offering the stuffed bear. Her apprehension turned to delight as she eagerly took it, scampering off to show Missy. Watching Mia, I reminisced about Jenny and Jill at her age, realizing how much I missed them. What's wrong? Missy inquired, snapping me from my reverie. Forced smile. Nothing. Just thinking about my daughters when they were Mia's age. Is it really that bad? She inquired. They still won't talk to me. Kathy's turned them against me, and I can't change their minds, but I'm still trying. I leave them messages every day, and I won't stop. I'm so sorry, Bill. I know this is awful for you every day, but I know they listen to my messages. I mentioned our date tonight, and Katie texted me, calling me a prick for getting to the point so quickly. Sorry, is that too fast? She bit her lip, looking cute. Maybe, I replied honestly, but I'd be happy to find out with you. She smiled, taking my hand. Dinner is ready. I hope you like pasta with meat sauce. Sounds great. Oh, I have garlic bread too. So be ready for us to make out on the couch later. Mia giggled, and I was surprised by Missy's candidness. She sensed my awkwardness and said, Bill, we're both adults, and I've known you for 3 years. I know what kind of man you are, and it doesn't take much to realize that I really like you. You're going to be a hot commodity soon, and I want to stake my claim early. Hot stuff? I quipped. Yep. You have no idea how much buzz the news of your divorce has caused at the store, honey. Your appearance on the market, so to speak, has caught the attention of many unmarried ladies. You're a handsome man in good shape. You're smart, stable, and we all know how you feel about fidelity. When I sat down at her table, I felt quite good, so I'm getting in line early, she concluded. I grasped her hand. I like you too. Mia chimed in. Sketty's my favorite. I like Sketty too. The fattier, the better, I quipped, eyeing the Parmesan cheese jar. And you must have really pungent cheese, I added jokingly. She giggled, correcting me. It's not stinky cheese, it's Parm. Stinky cheese, I teased, pretending to sniff the jar dramatically. Wow, this is really stinky cheese, Missy chuckled, shaking her head as Mia poured a generous amount over the spaghetti. During dinner, we chatted lightly. I inquired about Mia's preschool adventures, and she eagerly shared every detail. It was a delightful exchange. I soon noticed Missy's quiet contentment as she observed us. As she began clearing plates, she joked, "She hasn't shared her favorite TV shows yet." After tucking Mia into bed, Missy joined me on the couch. Handing her a glass of wine, she relaxed and remarked, "Being a mom is the highlight of my day. But moments like these are precious." I instinctively embraced her, and she nestled closer. "It's even busier with two," I admitted. "Do you think your girls will come around?" she asked. "I hope so," I answered, reflecting on their situation. She kissed my cheek and encouraged me not to give up the fight for them. Setting down her glass, Missy leaned back. "Bill, I've made it clear that I really like you. I'm too old to play games. I want to continue seeing you, and that includes inviting you into my life carnally." I started to interject, but she raised a finger. "I know you want to be a gentleman, but you don't have to be. I'm not looking for casual flings. I want an exclusive relationship. My daughter needs a father figure, and I need a husband. That's what I'm offering." I attempted to speak again, only to be met with resistance once more. Typically, guys bolt after this conversation. I don't see you as that type, but I'm offering you an out. If you're looking to play the field, I'm not your match. But if you're interested in building something lasting, then I'm here. "Impressive," I remarked. "Was that rehearsed or spontaneous?" She frowned, misunderstanding my reaction. "Missy, we've had a professional relationship for 3 years. Our recent coffee meetups have been enjoyable. I'm a family man. I've always been. I don't know how to navigate the single scene, and the idea of dating terrifies me. If my wife hadn't strayed, I'd still be happily married. No, I'm not interested in that lifestyle." She smiled, taking my hand. "You're charming, intelligent, and your spaghetti is fantastic." We shared a laugh, and she playfully nudged my shoulder. "I'd like you to be my boyfriend. Let's build something meaningful together, including with your daughter." That night, we refrained from intimacy. Despite the temptation, I opted to take things slow, respecting both our feelings. A stroke of luck came my way when I received an application for a managerial position. Though I never learned the name of the individual who contributed to the demise of my marriage, fate intervened when he applied for the night manager role. Recognizing him instantly, I orchestrated his hiring, anticipating the opportunity for payback. On his second night, I left a 40-inch TV in his car, identical to mine, knowing it would likely be out of stock by morning. I arrived as his shift ended, walking him to his car while discussing his team. Upon noticing the TV in his back seat, I feigned surprise. "Jeff, did you buy that TV today? We're not open yet." "No, Bill, it's not mine. I have no idea how it got there." "Let's head back to the store," I suggested, to which he reluctantly agreed. Back at the store, his fear was palpable. With no night security due to our night crew, I easily disabled the security system, covering the camera with tape. When he saw the system malfunctioning, he grew frantic, insisting on his innocence as I contacted the police. Despite hoping for harsher consequences, he received a misdemeanor in community service. The corporation, finally acknowledging security gaps, installed parking lot cameras. He never suspected my involvement and unsuccessfully attempted to blame his team. His termination was swift and unsurprising. One chilly Saturday morning, a week after my dinner with Missy, I found her waiting in the car to keep warm. As I parked next to her, she greeted me with a kiss and confirmed our dinner plans for the night. "Absolutely," I replied. "Okay, I have something special I'm cooking for us. You won't want to miss it," she added. Before I could respond, Katie's interruption came from behind me. Missy, visibly irritated, addressed her. "Katie, what do you want?" I asked, growing annoyed. "I've been trying to call you. Did you block my number?" "Yeah, after your 30 messages about how I'm a prick for continuing to live. I'm done. What do you want?" "We need to talk about the girls in college," Katie insisted. "They can go wherever they want. I've handled the finances for them. I'd like to be involved, but thanks to you poisoning them against me, they won't talk to me," I replied. Katie suggested the girls feared I wouldn't pay their tuition. Missy interjected with a laugh. "I lost them in the divorce." This retort earned her a glare from Katie, who then blamed me for not forgiving her one slip-up. "You cost me my marriage, my family, my daughters, and my mother. You better never date again. If I find out, you'll never see a second date," I warned. Missy's rebuttal was sharp. No one wants to date a cheating strumpet unless they're looking for easy lovemaking. I headed towards the store, but heard shouting behind me. Glancing back, I saw Missy confronting Katie, pinning her against the car. "Stay away from my man!" Missy yelled, jabbing her finger. I intervened, pulling Missy away. "Stop it, Missy! She's not worth it!" "You heard me," Katie retorted, storming off. "Please, Katie, just go. It's over between us, and it's your fault," I said, leaving her sobbing by the car. Catching up to Missy, I took her hand. "I'm sorry, Bill. I got too territorial," she admitted. "No worries. Parking lot fights are great for the ego," I joked, and we went inside, laughing. Later, my mom called, but the call cut off abruptly. Concerned, I rushed to her house, ignoring Missy's calls. Arriving, I found the ambulance gone. She'd passed away before reaching the hospital. Alone in the ER lobby, I pondered her last words. Then Missy called. "Hey, my mom just passed away." "Oh, Bill, I'm deeply sorry to hear that. Yes, thank you. I'm worried I won't be much company tonight." "No worries, I'll be there for you." "You need me. Please let me come over." "All right, yes." Expressing my reluctance to be alone, I was grateful she agreed to keep me company. "I'm heading home now. I'll meet you there after you finish up." "All right, I'll be there soon." After finishing my conversation, I drove to my old house instead of heading home. I felt compelled to speak to my daughters, regardless of their willingness to see me. Arriving, I noticed both of their cars parked in the driveway, feeling a wave of apprehension. Entering through the garage, I was relieved not to find Kathy's car, as I wasn't ready to face her. The downstairs rooms were empty, so I made my way upstairs to the bedrooms. "Daddy!" Jill exclaimed as I entered her room. "What's up?" shouted Jenny, following behind me. "Did you come here to beg? Well, you can leave," Jill retorted. "Grandma had a heart attack and passed away this morning," I interjected. They both gasped. I felt it was important to share this news in person. "Now I feel like I've damned myself," I added. I exited and shut the door, ignoring Jenny's call to wait, and drove off. I headed to the small lake where we once shared joyous moments. Despite the chilly weather, the tranquil waters brought solace. Seated at a picnic bench, tears welled up again, not just for my mother, but for the estrangement from my daughters. Jenny's anger conveyed all I needed to know. Doubts crept in about my past actions, not with Katie, but with my girls. What had I done to earn their resentment? Katie's betrayal had shattered our family, yet my daughters couldn't see it. Lost in thought, I heard footsteps nearing. Turning, I found Katie and the girls approaching. "How did you find me here?" I turned back to the lake. "You forgot to turn off our Find My Phone app," Kathy replied. "Bill, I'm sorry about your mom," she added. "Yeah," I muttered. "Do you regret her pass away or turning her against me?" She fell silent. "Leave me alone. I can't deal with your stuff right now," I said. "I'll never forgive you." The last time we spoke, she insisted she wouldn't talk to me until I backed out of the divorce. She didn't even say she loved me before hanging up. "I'm so sorry, Bill," she said before leaving. Then Jenny spoke up. "Dad, we're sorry too. Please forgive us for being rude." They both rushed over to hug me and we cried together. "It's not my fault, girls. Your mother's actions broke us apart," I said. "We're sorry, Dad," Jill said. "We just wanted you to forgive her. She loves you. It's obvious." "Not enough to stay faithful," I replied. "Jill, I'm sorry, girls," I said tearfully. We hugged again while Kathy watched from the car. "Girls, I need you. You'll leave for college soon and I'll miss you. We're wasting time," I said. "We understand, Daddy," Jenny said. "We won't shut you out anymore." "I wish Grandma had the chance to do the same," Jill added. "Can we come with you, Daddy? We haven't seen your new house yet. Maybe we could grab pizza." "Sure, let your mom know, and let's head out." As I pulled into my driveway, I spotted Missy's car. I had forgotten she was coming. "Looks like you'll meet Missy," I told the girls. "Is she your girlfriend?" they asked simultaneously, making me chuckle. "Yeah, well, we just started dating." Look at him blushing. "So cute, Jenny." They dashed out of the car and bombarded Missy with questions, leaving her bewildered. "Girls, give her a break. Help her inside, and I'll introduce you properly." They kissed my cheek and hurried to the garage while I approached Missy. "Sorry about that," I said. She opened the door with a radiant smile and kissed my cheek. "Your daughters?" she asked. I nodded. "Come on, let's make proper introductions." "I hope I look okay. I must look awful." "You're fine. They'll like you, Jenny." "Jill, meet Missy," I said. They embraced Jenny and cheekily declared, "You're super hot." Jill exclaimed, "Good for you, Daddy." Missy laughed, leaving me too stunned to respond. Let's do a quick tour of the house. Then I need to handle some things for Grandma's services. Bill, I'll order pizza while you show them around. Perfect. You read my mind. Ooh, the girls cooed. As Missy smiled, I made the decision to wait until the next morning to inform others about my mom's passing. I'll draft an obituary for Monday's paper and share service details on Facebook. Tomorrow evening, after visiting the funeral home, we spent hours sharing stories about my mom and my girls, with a few embarrassing tales about myself thrown in to keep Missy entertained. It wasn't my fault I slipped on the wet pier and fell into the lake. Before we knew it, it was already 10. Girls, time is slipping away and it's getting late, I remarked. They frowned and asked if they could stay the night. I don't have beds for the guest rooms yet, I explained. Tell you what, I'll pick you up in the morning and we'll go out for breakfast. Okay, and if you don't mind, we could help sort through Grandma's things too, Jill offered. Thank you, I replied. Missy, would you like to join us for a ride or do you need to go home to Mia? She's staying with my parents. Jill's curiosity piqued. Who's Mia? Mia is my 4-year-old daughter, I revealed. Excited, they both squealed, expressing their eagerness to meet her. Missy chuckled at their enthusiasm. Someday soon, I promise. As we returned to my house, Missy commented, They're great girls. I'm glad you were able to reconnect with them. I sighed. Me too. I just wish it didn't take my mom's passing to bring us back together. With Missy nestled in my arms, I drifted off to sleep. The next morning, I awoke to find Missy still snuggled against me under a blanket. Feeling a sense of longing for closeness, I kissed her head and apologized for falling asleep. She moaned, stretching. It's okay, baby. You've had a very emotional day. Would you like to join me and the girls for breakfast? Only if I can bring Mia. My parents have plans this morning. Of course, my daughters will love her. Needing to fetch Mia, I arranged to meet my daughters at IHOP. As I walked in holding Mia's hand, my girls rushed over. They embraced Mia, twirled her in the air, and showered her with kisses, making her squeal and giggle with joy. We need to go to the bathroom, the girls announced in unison. We'll take her, they said, whisking Mia away. I don't know, Missy. Do you think they'll get along? I asked, smirking. She playfully clapped me on the shoulder and kissed my cheek. I hope they remain friends for years to come. Although it was just our first date, she expressed a long-term commitment, which was a bit surprising but reassuring. As we ate, Mia and my daughters chatted incessantly about everything. Mia showed genuine interest in their lives, peppering them with questions. My daughters, accustomed to babysitting, engaged effortlessly with Mia, bonding over shared interests in kids' shows and movies. Surprisingly, they also got along well with Missy, showing no hostility or anger toward her, unlike their initial reaction to my dating. This puzzled me, and I planned to discuss it with them later. After a busy day of phone calls, cleaning my mom's house, and visiting the funeral home, I finally relaxed when the girls returned for dinner, and Missy and Mia went their separate ways. During breakfast, Missy suggested avoiding the emotional strain of Mia's questions while sorting out my mom's house. Daddy, are you in love with Missy? Jenny asked abruptly. We've only seen each other a few times outside of work. It's too early to say it's love. Okay, Dad, Jill said, sounding like I was clueless. You know those cartoons where girls get dreamy-eyed and hearts flutter? That's Missy when she looks at you, Jill said before I could object. They exchanged looks and then declared, We like her. I went from joy to anger. Setting my pizza down, I headed to the sink to cool off. Daddy, Jenny asked, how could you shut me out all this time and now say you like my girlfriend? What did I do to deserve this? Do you know how many times I cried after leaving you messages you didn't care to hear? Mom made us what? I exclaimed. Jill explained. It began when Mom said if you felt distant, you could return to her, and we'd be a family again. We're truly sorry. Turning to Jenny, I saw her eyes tear up, and she rushed to hug me. Dad, we're so sorry. When that didn't work, she said you abandoned us and wouldn't pay for college because we wanted you to stay with her. She claimed your messages during the divorce were just tactics to win favor with the judge. You believed her? Dad, imagine sitting with her every day, hearing her defend one mistake against 20 years of love. We thought you were being unfair. What if it was you? Would you forgive your boyfriend for cheating? No response. Where's the line? I demanded. Unclear. Give me a clear answer. They wept, and our hug calmed me. I've missed you both so much, I said. After they professed their love, I reminded them, Time to go home. School's tomorrow. Make sure your mom tells them about the wake and funeral. You'll need time off this week. One last embrace, then I watched them drive off, feeling warmth inside. Looking at the sky, I whispered, "Mom, you didn't have to leave to bring my girls back, but thank you. I'll miss you." Wakes are always hard for me. Being near a deceased body is unsettling. My mom's wake was especially tough. Approaching her casket brought me solace, seeing her peaceful face. I knew she'd reunite with my late father, who avoided wakes. Mom planned hers meticulously, even choosing the casket. It was a relief knowing she had everything sorted. Chatting with one of her friends, Katie and my daughters arrived. Tearful hugs from the girls greeted me, while Katie stepped aside respectfully. After the prayer, Kathy placed something in the casket, then sat alone at the back. I saw it was a photo of Kathy, me, and my mom, all holding our babies, beaming. Touched, I took the photo and put it by my mom's hands, tears welling up. During the service, Kathy stayed seated at the back, chatting with everyone. Her bond with family members and their affection for her showed her enduring presence in our lives. The standard rule was for immediate family to sit in the front row, but it didn't feel right. Seeing Katie at the back, tears in her eyes, I knew Mom wouldn't have wanted it that way. Walking over, I invited her to join us. "Come here. No need to hide." She hugged me gratefully, whispering a thank you. Back in front, my Uncle John offered her his seat, earning Missy's praise. Holding Missy's hand while my ex-wife was nearby felt surreal. I hoped it wouldn't cause trouble later. As we said goodbye to the last visitors, Kathy thanked me for welcoming her into the family, offering to share the limo ride. Missy's hand on my waist, I feared tension, but Katie's departure eased it. "Let's get you home," Missy said, embracing me. In the kitchen, relieved the day was over, I handed Missy a cold beer. She thought things went well with Kathy. "Yeah, I'm glad. I half expected her to cause trouble with you." "The girls probably helped. We'll be okay after tomorrow." I hoped she was right. Maybe I was just paranoid about Katie and Missy. "Will you stay over tonight?" She squeezed my hand. "You couldn't kick me out if you tried." We didn't make love, but her presence brought the best sleep since the divorce. "You're keeping a close eye on me. I won't misuse your kindness by starting a fight," Kathy remarked as we waited for the service to begin. "I know I lied. I just feel uneasy about it." She snorted, adding, "How do you think I feel? I'm an outcast here, a disgrace." I frowned. "No one sees you that way, especially not today. I'm sorry, Bill. I wish I could undo it all." "I wish," she said, tears welling up before hurrying off to the bathroom. "It's tough for all of us, Bill." My mother's friend Jean comforted me, patting my shoulder. "Your mom was wonderful, and we'll all miss her." I kissed her cheek, grateful that Kathy had her mom to support her through the tears. After the funeral, we gathered at my mother's favorite Polish restaurant. Kathy looked uneasy as she searched for a seat. Taking her hand, I guided her to the table where Missy and my daughters sat. "Kathy, we'll always be family. Despite the divorce, no matter where we sit, you're always welcome." A tear rolled down her cheek as she thanked me, and in that moment I felt like I'd finally let go of the pain she caused. Life moved on. The girls Skype with me weekly while they're at college. Missy and I are going strong, and I'm considering popping the question soon. Katie and I don't talk much, but it's always friendly. She's moving on too, dating a nice divorced dad who's a friend of one of the girls. I wish them the best. Some may say I should forgive her one mistake, but I can't. I may be seen as the villain by some, but I'm at peace with myself.
My brother's wife helped my wife cheat on me. I uncovered their lies and got my revenge on them both. Jake had been plagued by migraines throughout his entire life, and at times, they would become incapacitating. His most recent episode occurred over a year ago, and he cherished each day without a migraine. Describing the intensity of severe migraines to someone who hasn't experienced them might be challenging, but prolonged suffering can make one yearn for an end to the pain, wishing for a peaceful departure. Although such severe migraines were infrequent for Jake, he understood the importance of heeding his body's signals and taking the necessary rest. Despite being a robust, muscular man of 35 years, on a Wednesday morning, Jake recognized the familiar signs: emerging double vision, dizziness, and a slight throbbing in his head. Aware of the potential risks, he opted not to drive and arranged for a taxi to take him home, instructing his secretary to cancel appointments for the day. He left the possibility of returning to the office tomorrow, pending. Given the week-long duration of these headaches, Jake preferred not to take any chances. Upon returning home, he took 2 Depot tablets, grabbed an ice pack, and headed to the living room adjacent to their spacious master bedroom. In a corner chair reserved for such rare occasions, he applied the ice pack to his head, closed his eyes, and attempted to meditate mindlessly. Despite the pain intensifying, he persevered in the hope that this migraine wouldn't be as severe as feared and that he could resume normal functioning within a couple of hours. While in his meditative state, Jake heard noises below, assuming it was his wife of 10 years, Linda. Deciding to remain seated, he wasn't prepared for conversation. Linda, understanding his condition, typically gave him space and quiet when he was home during a migraine attack. However, unbeknownst to Linda, Jake's car wasn't in the driveway, and he had no reason to be home at that time since he usually arrived every night at 6. Despite blocking out the noise and focusing on controlling the pain, Jake suddenly became aware that Linda wasn't alone. Another voice, a man's voice, reached his ears. Opening his eyes, he noticed Linda and the unidentified person heading upstairs to their bedroom. Staying still and silent, he eavesdropped on their conversation. Linda, on her cell phone, was giggling and chatting with Shelley, Jake's brother Rob's wife. The situation struck Jake as strange, and he questioned whether he was dreaming until he realized the truth of the situation unfolding before him. His return to reality was immediate upon hearing her speak. "Oh, Shelley, I'm currently with him. Thanks for arranging this date. I hope it goes as well as yours did last week. He'll call you tomorrow to plan another date. I'll provide a full report later. Got to go, thanks again." The agony in Jake's heart escalated beyond a migraine. Unsure of what to do, he realized. They were oblivious to his presence and the reasons behind it. Situated in the living room beside the bedroom, the chair he occupied remained out of sight, offering a concealed front-row view of the unfolding drama. As he sat there, his blood began to boil, doing nothing to alleviate his headache. Nausea intensified from both the migraine and the distressing events. Heartbroken, tears welled up as he acknowledged the end of his marriage with the woman he loved. In complete silence, he listened as the man praised his wife's allure. After their pants hit the floor, Jake found himself spiraling into an inescapable emotional abyss. He heard the couple lie down on the bed, and his wife, Linda, complimented the man, Blake, on their friendship and handling something substantial. Exerting self-restraint, he waited for the opportune moment to intervene, which arrived sooner than expected. After granting them a brief moment, he concluded it was time to confront the two lovers. Suppressing pain and anger, he rose and mustered the strength to face them in their marital bed. Moving slowly and quietly, although noise from the lovers drowned any sound, Linda, engrossed in betrayal, noticed Jake standing nearby. Panicking, she attempted to separate from Blake, who persisted despite her protests. The revelation came too late. Jake's head and heartache overwhelmed him. Retrieving a loaded Glock G45 from his nightstand, he aimed at Blake's left temple. Blake collapsed onto Linda, who lay in shock. With tear-filled eyes, Jake addressed Linda, saying, "I loved you with all my heart, and you took away everything I cherished. My heart is broken." He fired the next bullet into her head. Witnessing the departure of life from her body, Jake reached out to me, his brother Robbie. Despite having just committed a double homicide, his voice remained strangely calm. I greeted him casually, asking, "Hey bro, how are you?" Urgently, Jake instructed me to listen closely. He disclosed discovering Linda in bed with a guy named Blake, whom he suspected to be the new tennis instructor. Overhearing Linda talking to Shelley, he believed Shell might be involved with Blake as well. Worried, he advised me to keep an eye on Shelley. Interrupting any attempts to respond, Jake insisted I listen further. He admitted to eliminating Linda and Blake in his bed, emphasizing the gravity of his words. Wanting to spare me from his anguish, Jake encouraged me to investigate if Shelley was cheating on me. Overwhelmed by migraines and the profound betrayal, he couldn't endure it any longer. He expressed his love for me, apologized, and bid farewell before the phone went silent. Before putting the next bullet in his head, Jake dialed the emergency hotline to report the double homicide and self-destruction, ensuring they had the correct address. They found Jake in a chair with a migraine, holding a weapon, his head leaning against a nearby wall. Arriving minutes later, I encountered a bloody scene. I'm Robbie, and Jake was my older brother. This incident occurred a year ago, marking the worst day of my life and causing significant changes in my world. Losing my older brother to his unfaithful wife was challenging for everyone, particularly impactful on me. Jake had been my best friend, and I loved him deeply. The revelation of Linda's affair and the subsequent homicides and self-destruction turned her into a hated figure in our close-knit community. Still grappling with anger and depression over my brother's passing away, I kept Jake's revelations from Shelley, opting to closely monitor my wife. After Jake's self-destruction, I became paranoid and hired a high-end security company to install various monitoring devices and software. It took 2 weeks for everything to be ready. If Shell was involved in Linda's infidelity, I aimed to uncover the extent of her own betrayal. My pain persisted, and I became obsessed with understanding my wife's role in the case. Copulation between Shell and me became rare and cold after Jake's self-destruction and the revelation of Shelley's involvement in Linda's infidelity. Upon confirming Shell's infidelity, I harbored anger and a desire for revenge against her for betraying me and contributing to Jake's self-destruction. Over the year, the security company provided me with extensive video and audio recordings of Shelley and her lover engaging in loving acts. Although hurtful, the most painful aspects were Shell's conversations with her lover replaying certain phrases in my head. Her lover questioned why she stayed with me, highlighting their shared belief that our bed life was dull compared to theirs. He suggested she should leave me and move in with him. However, Shell explained that I was grieving my brother's passing away and coping with depression, not wanting to add more pressure on me. She reassured her lover that she didn't need copulation with me as long as she had him. Despite their physical connection, Shelley emphasized her love for me and her commitment to our relationship. She clarified that their relationship was purely about closeness, expressing nostalgia for Blake and disbelief at his demise. They discussed the absence of Blake and expressed concern about my mental state, hoping I wasn't as unstable as my brother. Shell's lover assured her he wouldn't bring her to our house like Blake did, and insisted they were fine, vowing never to get caught. He pledged not to let a similar incident happen to them. After discovering Shell's infidelity, I devised a plan. She had cheated on me with the assistant tennis coach, Jared Roberts, later promoted to head coach after Blake's untimely passing away. A few weeks later, my anticipated opportunity arrived. Jared was invited to a banquet honoring the country club's top tennis program. I called Shelley, informing her about the banquet, and she was thrilled at the idea of staying at the Ritz-Carlton and spending the entire night with him. Conveniently, I mentioned my 2-day trip coinciding with the banquet dates. My intention was to ensure Shelley had enough rope to hang herself. As expected, the next day she called Jared, sharing the good news. She persuaded him to take an extended trip, stay 3 nights at a hotel in Orlando, and promised to make his world rock. Naturally, he agreed. Over the next week, they talked about it on the phone and in their messages. It was Shell's idea to turn the getaway into a fake honeymoon, telling Jared she would like to be his new bride and wife for the 3 days. To further her plan, she even suggested buying a new engagement ring for the occasion and booking a honeymoon hotel room to make it more realistic. They planned to present themselves as newlyweds to attract attention and experience the thrill. She even told Jared that she wished it was real and that he really was her husband. Reading all these texts infuriated me and fueled the embers of my revenge. I was going to enjoy watching her face the demise of everything she loved. Shelley spent all her time working out in the gym, but I was unimpressed and wanted nothing to do with my cheating soon-to-be ex-wife. She was going to spend 3 days with Jared as his wife on a pretend honeymoon. This would be her first extended time alone with another man since she got married 10 years ago. Shelley and Jared thought it would be romantic, so she bought several attractive outfits, bikinis, and lingerie for their date and planned everything out. I was amazed and jealous of the effort she put into this guy. The love I once had for her was gone, and this level of betrayal drained the last drop of love I had left. It was over, and it was time for Shell to feel the pain. On the way to the hotel, I called Shelley but only received her voicemail. I left her a message saying that I loved her and would see her in days. Shell called me back an hour later, seemingly wanting to make sure I didn't suspect anything. She told me that she loved me and that the children were at their friend's house. Shelley mentioned she would order pizza when the kids got home and that they would watch movies all night. She expressed how much she missed me, said goodbye, and told me that she loved me more than anything in the world, eagerly awaiting my return. The realization hit me like a wave, and I couldn't believe she would lie to me so easily. Arriving at the hotel, I handed my car to the valet. Inquiring at the reception, I asked if Mr. and Mrs. Roberts had checked in earlier. My anger intensified when the receptionist confirmed that the newlyweds had indeed checked into their honeymoon suite the day before. To gather more information, I contacted the hotel's restaurants and confirmed their reservation for 6 p.m. that evening at the main restaurant. Strategically choosing the best viewing spot, I carefully followed the couple throughout dinner without being noticed. As they left, I positioned myself at the entrance, planning to make it appear as if I were entering the restaurant at the same time they were leaving. Observing the newlyweds holding hands, I timed everything perfectly. I deliberately turned the corner to run into them. At that moment, I collided with Shell's beau, nearly knocking him over, and everyone turned to look. We both staggered slightly, regained composure with a smile, and I took a step back, apologizing. "Oh, I'm so sorry, excuse me." Then I spotted Shelley, mouth agape, simulating shock and surprise. She, adorned in her alluring dress, wished to flee and hide. Her worst fear had materialized. Caught in complete shock with wide-open eyes, she was exposed. I addressed her. "Shelley, is that you?" "What are you doing here?" I said with a practiced expression on my face. Jared, her boyfriend, couldn't comprehend who I was or what was unfolding for several minutes. I then stepped back, gazing at my wife as if her outfit astonished me. I couldn't fathom how she appeared. She wore a very short, low-cut dress with no bra, nylon stockings, captivating heels, and glamorous makeup and hair. Thoughts raced through my mind, desiring that she could dress similarly for me. It seemed like a special ensemble, and I had never seen her exude such sensuality. I was perplexed, contemplating the circumstances. Shelley acknowledged she was caught and struggled to think of something to say, but she just stood there with her mouth agape, attempting to compose herself. She mentioned that I should be in Jacksonville, explaining that plans had changed due to her job. Bewildered by the scene, I questioned if she was provocatively dressed with some guy. I suggested going out into the lobby to talk, almost shouting and grabbing her hand. Once in the lobby, I confronted her, revisiting our earlier discussion about staying home with the children. I inquired about her presence at the hotel and the person she was on a date with. I repeated my disbelief, wondering if it wasn't what I thought. Looking at her hand and then into her eyes, I pointed out the absence of her wedding rings and questioned if she had cheated on me. Observing the replaced gold ring on her finger, a stark contrast to the large diamond one given by her lover for their pretend honeymoon weekend, she seemed trapped, yearning to escape. In response, she claimed her love for me, insisting it meant nothing. I pressed on, questioning the absence of her wedding ring and the presence of a new gold ring, accusing her of leaving me for someone else. I asserted that it seemed like something was indeed happening. Throughout, I heightened the pressure, savoring every moment of her confusion. In that tense moment, I turned to the tennis player, my voice firm as I demanded an explanation. "Why don't you tell me what's going on?" Shelley, caught in the middle, looked at Jared with fear, unsure of how he would respond. Jared, attempting to ease the situation, told me to relax, echoing Shell's assurance that nothing inappropriate was happening. He explained there was an awards banquet at the hotel and that Shelley had kindly accompanied him to support our country club. According to him, it was just a favor and everything was fine. Suppressing a laugh, I tried to comprehend the absurdity of the situation. I pressed further, questioning if Shelley was only being nice and attending the ceremony as Jared's date. Then I inquired about their lodging, making it clear that lying would not be tolerated. I intended to inspect both rooms before leaving. Silence fell as they both looked at the floor, avoiding eye contact. Shelley, breaking the silence, pleaded with me not to be upset, expressing her love and attempting to downplay the situation by mentioning that only a few days would have passed and no one would have known about it. The harsh reality struck as the truth unfolded. She spent a few days with him, sharing the same room, engaging in loving acts, and conspicuously absent were my wedding rings, replaced by a new gold band. Shock set in as I confronted her with disbelief. Despite already knowing the answer, I didn't let up, feigning astonishment. "Darling, it's not what you think," she tried to explain, seeking to justify her actions. My anger, though simulated, surged as I demanded a straightforward response. "Answer the question. I'll go to the front desk to get some answers, so you better start talking." "Do you live in the same room? Answer me." Tearfully, she admitted yes. The floodgates opened, and she sobbed, unable to hide the truth any longer. "Are you having closeness? And remember, I'm not an idiot." Again, through tears, Shelley confessed, yes. The pivotal question lingered. "Are you pretending to be his wife?" Sobbing, she insisted, "It's not what you think, baby." I pressed harder, demanding a clear response. "Answer the damn question. Did you check into this hotel as Mr. and Mrs. Roberts?" In embarrassment and with a tearful voice, she reluctantly admitted, "Yes." I grasped the situation and made a decision, stating that I understood. I informed Shelley that I would leave her and her new husband alone. I mentioned that I was returning home and that we would contact a lawyer in the morning. I conveyed that we were done, emphasizing that she had left our love, our marriage, and our life together, all to have fun with that tennis player. Shelley pleaded desperately, expressing her love and stating that she didn't want a divorce. She emphasized that I was her husband and she couldn't lose me, urging me to understand. I remained firm, stating that I didn't understand. I offered one more chance for her to explain the situation so that I could understand. I asked her to tell me why I should put up with my wife sleeping with another man and pretending to be his wife. She begged once again, asking me to understand that it was only supposed to last a few days and that she needed it. She insisted that it was just about closeness and that she didn't love him, emphasizing that she only loved me. I questioned whether I should be okay with her sleeping with another man for a few days to have some fun. Shelley, now hysterical, sobbed between her hands, realizing the gravity of her actions and lacking a good excuse. All she could do was beg for understanding, apologizing and expressing her love. She acknowledged that it sounded bad but believed we could get through it. She pleaded for forgiveness, expressing her desire to be with me. Silence ensued. The tennis guy grew irritated and impatient, interjecting to tell me to step back a little and pointing out how upset Shelley was. I turned to Jared with a death stare, instructing him to shut up and get out of my sight. I told him to leave me and my real wife alone, emphasizing that he had already ruined our marriage and that should be enough for the day. Unfazed, Jared stood up, placed his hand on Shelley's shoulder, and stated that he would be in their room, asking her to come up when I was done. She pushed his hand away furiously, not wanting anything to do with him in that moment. I couldn't help but laugh. I comprehended the situation and made a decision. Suddenly, she no longer desired to be with her lover, and he reveled in everything unfolding. I continued to taunt Shelley as she sat there sobbing, urging her not to be rude to her new husband. I suggested that I might be ruining their honeymoon, and emphasized that we both knew she wanted this and no longer wanted to be with me. I insinuated that she didn't love me, claiming that if she did, she wouldn't cheat on me and show me such disrespect. After Jared departed, we were left alone. She pleaded with me to stay, gazing at me with imploring eyes. For a few minutes, I questioned her about the duration of her involvement with Jared. Once again, she lied, insisting it was their first encounter. I marveled at how effortlessly she could deceive me. I probed further, asking if she had ever spoken ill of me or scolded me to Jared during our time together, or during loving moments. Once again, she lied, denying any such behavior. She reassured me, expressing her love and emphasizing my significance to her. She urged us to leave, proposing an immediate return home to be together. Amidst a whirlwind of emotions, I took out my phone and muted the audio. With a heavy heart, I initiated a playlist featuring snippets of our conversations from the past 6 months. Firstly, I'm aware of your 2-year-long infidelity. Secondly, could you explain this to me? The sound was crisp and loud. The first audio assured someone not to worry about me, claiming ignorance. The second audio expressed dissatisfaction, voicing dislike for our loving moments due to my perceived dullness. The third audio professed commitment, choosing to stay not for the physical aspect but out of love. Subsequently, the fourth audio acknowledged me as a good provider and father with no intention of letting me go. The fifth audio made a damning comparison, hinting at someone else being better in bed. The sixth audio conveyed affection and love for another person's ability to arouse her. The seventh audio declared allegiance, stating that her entirety belonged to someone else, not me. Over 50 audio files followed, each one mocking and humiliating me and our marriage. I couldn't fathom the depth of her contempt for me. Her words transcended playful banter. They were profoundly hurtful and disrespectful. Unfortunately, these words would continue to haunt me indefinitely. She wore an expression of apathy, shock, sadness, and utter devastation, a marked departure from her usual demeanor. There was a certain satisfaction in witnessing her grasp the reality that she had irreversibly shattered the marriage, and things would never be the same for her. In a resolute tone, I communicated to Shell that our relationship was terminated due to my inability to endure her lies any longer. I disclosed my awareness of her infidelity and extramarital affairs spanning at least 2 years. Adding a layer of intrigue, I informed her that Jake had contacted me the night he shot his wife and her ex-lover. Overhearing her conversation with Linda about her fondness for Blake's friend, I had been cognizant of her deceit, lies, and disrespect towards me. My intention had been to see how far she would go, and she hadn't slowed down. I highlighted how her actions and remarks unmistakably portrayed me merely as a good provider and father to our children. Disclosing the existence of audio recordings of all her calls and messages, I underscored that I knew her true sentiments about me, our bed life, and her discontent. The ultimatum was straightforward: she must cease the deception and lies, or the truth would be exposed to everyone. After a significant pause, I conveyed that I would be reasonable, but she needed to sign the divorce papers without contesting the agreement. I cautioned that if she chose to resist, I wouldn't hesitate to reveal all the videos and audios to everyone, including her parents. I pointed out that our children were old enough to decide who they wanted to live with, and after we explained her infidelity, lies, and deceit, I was confident they would choose to live with me. I expressed to Shelley that the truly heartbreaking aspect of all this was that I once loved her with all my heart and envisioned a lifetime together. I shared that when Jake first told me about her, I refused to believe it, but the terrible truth unfolded and my heart shattered. I made it clear that she would have to live with the weight of guilt and the loss of love forever, stating firmly, "We are never ever getting back together." Leaving Shelley in tears, I rose, drove home, and grappled with my brother's passing away. I contemplated that revenge didn't bring peace. 5 years later, I encountered a woman in a cafe, and we developed a close friendship. I refrained from remarrying, explaining that I could never trust another woman the way I did before. We dated for several years and remained friends. Shelley suffered a nervous breakdown and was hospitalized for a year after the divorce was finalized. She was never invited back to the city where they learned of her involvement in the loss of lives of Jake and Linda and her betrayal of the family. She lost custody of her children and only saw them every other weekend. She spent several years deeply depressed because of what she had done. As long as she continued to take her medication, she was able to live off the divorce agreement and her job as a secretary in a real estate office in another city. The children grew up without any problems because I kept them safe and protected. The people around us rallied around me and the children, which allowed us to lead a normal life. Shelley never recovered from the loss of her love, her children, and the wonderful life she once had. Every night she went to bed thinking about how many lives she had ruined and how her life had been ruined by selfishness and narcissism. Shelley became an active church attender and eventually dedicated her life to the church in hopes of finding forgiveness. Oh yeah, Mr. Tennis Pro was attacked one night after leaving another married mistress. His 2 Achilles tendons were cut after being tasered. At this point, his tennis career ended. When the police asked him what happened and what he remembered, he remained silent and did not say anything. However, he remembered the voice and received the message loud and clear. He could identify the voice but decided not to share the message with police. He will never forget what he was told: stop seducing married women.